Good afternoon, Tom.
Good afternoon, Anthony.
We're here in your forge in the heart of the Boyne Valley on a lovely late winter day. It kind of feels like spring is in the air, doesn't it?
Correct. Lovely mild day.
And we're here to talk about your work and a few other things. But we should start, as I always do, by asking you to tell us, first of all, about your origins.
Yes.
And your upbringing, and perhaps lead into then how you first became interested in the creative area that you ended up in.
Absolutely, Anthony. Yeah, I mean, we're located here in the village of Bohemine, which is the Irish for smooth road. So that's quite a significant little village itself regarding the old or the ancient road to Tara. So the Bohemine school is only down the road here, where we were schooled there for the very young age. And at that there was always that the curiosity of the making and the creating and drawing. So that seed was very well planted at a very early stage there. And of course, having been brought up on a farm, you had that space to express that creativity and the freedom, so to speak.
Yeah.
So we're always, mechanically minded, making things, innovating situations and circumstances there in and around farm machinery and all that. So that was always the case from a very early age.
Brilliant. And you said the smooth road.
Yes.
And tell us about how that connects with Tara. How far away is the hill of Tara from here?
From the village of Bohemine, it's about a 12-15 minute drive. So it's literally down the road.
Yeah.
So Bohemine, the smooth road, was one of the 5 smooth roads in the old calendar that led the Northern Territories to the Sacred Hill for ceremony and all that went with the hill of Tara. So it's pretty special. The actual road outside of the farm here is called the Well Road, for the obvious wells. There's 2 wells. There's a well right across the road from where we sat here, and another well there about 1.5 miles up the road here. And again, the old people of the village, the very old people, they in their lifetime said, in all their years and all the dry summers, never seen it dry. So it's an incredible thing when you can see the well and how it just survives. So it's obviously got that special relationship with the village, and back in the day again, when it did serve, obviously, for all those years.
Yeah, and are there names on the wells, do you know?
It's just a limestone flag across it, and the effort has been made then just to protect the actual surrounding from cattle or animals getting in to upset the stonework.
Yeah.
But, it's always been respected.
Yeah, of course, wells are very... there's a great history of wells, sacred wells in
Correct.
Ireland.
Yeah.
A lot of them have saints' names.
Correct.
But they were probably Christianized at some point, and some of these wells were sources of clean water.
Correct.
Right back
Yeah.
through history, and maybe even into prehistory as well. And it's nice that you're conscious of your sort of home
without a
territory
doubt. Yes.
and your roots and the
Correct.
stories around it.
Correct.
Because there's a distinct story here too at your home place, connecting with the famine, isn't there? A kind of a sad story, really.
There is
isn't
indeed.
there?
Yes, during the hungry years, as we like to call it, because the famine is another very debatable discussion when you go into the bones of it, so to speak. So during those hungry years, the local town in Navan, when they could not cope with the numbers, what they did was they suggested that the local house here that was on the land was called Robertstown House. A big old listed building, a grand old stone dwelling.
Yeah.
At the time then it was suggested that they were going to lease it. So they rented it out, whatever shillings a week for whatever reason, or whatever the sum was. And it became then Durhamstown Auxiliary Workhouse. So that was the go-to when the local workhouse in Navan became full. There was no more room. So again, the locals, all the unfortunates that had no other option, they would have walked up this back avenue here to the farm. They would have swung right along the woodland, entered another stout woodland, and another 10-minute walk then right up to the workhouse.
Yeah.
And that's where they sought refuge and food.
And of course, at that time, I don't have a huge knowledge of the famine, but I understand that the workhouses were all full.
Correct.
And that it was difficult to get into any of them.
Extremely difficult, yeah. In fact, there is a road now, if you came here now in the twilight of the evening, if you could see the lights through the woods there, that's the New Line Road. It's another road going from Navan to Bohemine. It's about 2.5-3 mile long, straight as a rifle shot. That was a penal project where the occupants of the house were sent to their work every day because the funding came from England to say, well, we'll give you the funding, but here's the tools and go and construct roadways or whatever other projects that's needed in the local area. So it wasn't a matter of just giving them the relief. They had to earn it. So
they were working
working for their food, yeah.
And God help them, they were probably wretched and starving.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, there was a local historian here, a man by the name of Pat Travers. He was always coming to our farm every summer just to come for a walk, to visit the workhouse. And the stories that Pat would explain, you know, he mentioned one time, when they baked the bread, they would never give it to them straight away because it was too fresh. It had to be a week or a week and a half old before you would get your slice of bread, because then while you consume that slice, you know, you just kind of held that notion until you were hungry enough to go for another one rather than eat too much too soon.
Wow.
Well, it was fresh.
So they were basically eating stale bread.
Correct and right, yeah.
Wow, as a means of just slowing them.
Correct.
Yeah.
If it was fresh, they'd eat it too quickly and eat too much.
Yeah. We were talking before the cameras were rolling there about our favourite movie of ours, The Field.
Yeah.
And you spoke about a very poignant scene that touched me also. And that was the scene, you tell the story, but that was the scene in the church where the priest is after reading them from the pulpit and running them out of the church.
Correct.
And closing the gates on them.
Yes, at that point of the film, the priest almost takes the authority on himself and to lecture the congregation there, you know, to say, well, somebody has news but is not saying it. So we blame everybody. So everybody please leave the church or the chapel. And everybody's a little annoyed with that, you know. You can imagine the ladies and the children very upset having to leave God's house under the instruction of the priest. And as everyone exits the church and the chapel gate, the gates are closed, and of course the great Bull McCabe comes up with that great quote. You know, as he said himself, you know, no priest died during the famine.
Yeah.
Which is an incredible statement when you think, you know, everybody has to suffer. You know, so why should those, you know, that in a little bit of authority, a little bit of power, be better off than those who had nothing?
Yeah. And Richard Harris, an absolutely
legend.
Fantastic
Absolutely
performance.
Brilliant.
If you haven't seen The Field, definitely you must see The Field, starring Richard Harris and John Hurt and Sean Bean and Francis Tomelty. Brilliant movie.
Yeah.
Might just add here that, you know, we're costumed up today, Tom, and he has the whole Bull McCabe look about him, doesn't he? You can nearly imagine him with a stick in his hand, you know, saying, "You'll sell no field." But yeah, we're in costume.
We are, yeah.
Tell the viewers a little bit about the costume and, of course, the furniture and the setting.
Well, part of the visit or the experience to the Bohemine and An Gobha, you know, I do make an effort. I like to create. If you use your imagination at all and just cast your mind back, all those years back to the Tua de Dana, the Sacred Hill of Tara, the festivities, the banquets, you know, the celebrations, the living, enjoying the life. And why not at the Forge? A similar encounter, bring it back to basics, a little bit of fun, a little bit of creativity, and you know what? It's a very enjoyable encounter, and you know it creates that atmosphere. It creates this personality, and it's very enjoyable, and I get a lot of fun out of it.
I think this is the first time I've done an interview in costume, and I really love the chairs.
Well,
Tom.
do you know what? Behind you here now, I have to say now, and a big shout out to Sean Fitzgerald here, because really thanks to Sean here, because a huge fan of Sean's work. Very inspirational, you know, as a maker of metal and all creativity regarding woodwork or anything like that. I get my stimulus, I get my excitement from the Courtney Davises, the Jim Fitzpatricks, and the Sean Fitzgeralds. And Sean's chair is behind you here, where this is the Lou chair. If in one of Sean's images there on the Battle of Moytura, he has the young Lou sat there with the crown of spears and the crown of swords. And I think that's an incredibly powerful image. So again, a little bit of creativity, and look, we've got the throne. So
and this beautiful spiral.
Yes,
as well. Which, how is that finished? There's a lovely sheen off that.
Well, what I've done is I've scrolled it up. I've used my forge here, and then what I've done is I've given it a colour black, and then I've come with a clear coat lacquer, a 2-pack lacquer, just to give it a little bit of shine.
And so I have my spear. Not exactly sure what this is for. Certainly not for use on him. This is just in case we get any unwanted intruders. But brilliant. And this is another
correct
the things that you made.
Yes, yeah. I'm very excited to start going down the road of the spears and the blades and the swords and the shields. Again, that mythical past, where at one time, if you can imagine and picture the scene, where the great Finn went to battle, and the great warrior, and all the stories that goes with that. You can imagine the conversation he had with An Gobha at the time, where he came back and just maybe critiqued the blade.
Yeah.
That broke when it shouldn't have broken.
Yeah.
Here's the new or the latest blade or the latest dragon slaying sword or whatever. So again, there's an interesting conversation with the maker and the creator, with the great queens and the kings and the warriors. So it's all a bit of fun.
Well, it's great that you're inspired by the mythology too. But anyway, before we get on to that, we need to talk about how and when did you actually first smith, and did you first realise that not only could you work with metal, but that you enjoyed it and you could see yourself creating? Is that long ago? Or?
Long ago, in a sense of the creating and the innovativeness. That's absolutely given. There's no falter there, for want of a better description. But the direction of where I could, because I'm a design engineer by trade.
Right.
I'm schooled in the art of agricultural design engineer, so that's my bread and butter. But again, it's a similar kind of thought. When you have a problem, you create a concept, an idea, it goes into R&D, research and development, you develop the concept, you bring it to production. So that kind of, all those gears, or that mechanically minded aspect of it, then started coming to the creativity on the artwork and how I can express that innovativeness or the creative thinking in regards in artwork. Now, we're very blessed, as I mentioned to you before there, where we're located in the Boyne Valley. We've got the ancient East, the heritage, all that goes with that. And again, if we pick up any book or the literature or the great work you've been working on, Anthony, there regarding the excitement of the stimulus of the ancient stories, and if you can start putting some meaningful art with that to create, all of a sudden I have the spirals, I have the pendants, I have the torques, I have the swords, I have the spears. So they become real. They're no longer an image on a book. They become crafted and they become real. And there's a lot of enjoyment in that, because you've got a story association with your heritage, with the people who have gone before us. So if we think of the Boyne Valley now and think of all the artists and the creators in the Boyne Valley, and you ask them people, what's your stimulus, what gets you excited? Every one of them will have different answers. And I'm sure a lot of people will say, the ancient East, the ancient past, and the myth and legend that goes with that gets me excited. And it's a tremendously exciting platform and a stimulus. There's so much information there, and there's so much excitement. Again, you could go to the National Museum and you look behind this glass and you just look at all the chalices and the brooch work.
Most incredible thing.
And they're absolutely exquisite.
It's just amazing.
So you can imagine the hands that put that together, and the tools they've used, the techniques they've used, the painful process of a very slow creativity from start to finish, and the response they would have got from that, it would have been incredible.
So you in a sense, or in essence, you worked in agricultural machinery design,
correct,
and manufacture,
correct, yes,
and so the set of skills that you learned there, you just transferred those to the creative sphere.
Yes.
So a lot of what you learned in that industry served you well then as an artist.
Because it almost acts as the cornerstone for the wall. It gets you started, it gives you a platform, because art always has a meaning. There has to be the question of why, and you always want to provoke the thought and create that that item that someone will look at and appreciate.
Yeah. And
when you have story behind that, then the mechanics are to be able to make that comes to play behind it. But it's what you see as a finished article that you can say, well, right, I know, I understand the association of what you've done and the background behind that. Again, there's so much information there and so much exciting.
And I suppose it gives you an idea of what kind of metals can be worked in particular ways.
Correct.
What sort of, I suppose, the cost of metals is.
Yes.
And then the sort of machinery that you would need, but you don't use a lot of machinery in what you do, don't you not?
So there's machinery in some aspect of it, but most of it is handwork.
Which is brilliant.
Well, because it gives us the finesse of it. It gives you the style, it gives you the finish, it gives you that personality in the steel itself.
Tell me, when did you first make something?
In the blacksmith?
As a smith,
Oh, I reckon about 10, 12 years ago.
And what did you make, and how did it feel, and how did it give you an introduction to, hang on a second, there's a whole world of creativity
Yes,
here.
you see, I also wood turn as well, and I've made some of my wood turning tools. Again, being innovative, again, I see springs from old lorries or car springs. I can reinvent those because they're a high carbon steel. So again, I read up on the smiths and how they anneal the metal, they can shape the metal, harden and temper, and all of a sudden, once I go through that process, then I have a tool that's a very useful item, and it's made literally from scrap. I don't have to go to the high street or spend money to say, well, I can buy a high-speed steel. Well, why would I be doing that when I have all this steel available there? It's just a matter of going forge it, harden and temper it, put a handle on it, and I have a very useful tool.
It's a wonderful thing, isn't it, to be able to create something beautiful from something that maybe somebody looks at and goes, that's a piece of scrap. That's worthless.
Correct.
But in your eyes, it's never worthless.
The smith was always the case. They always had that incredible innovativeness to be able to say, right, here's the problem and here's the solution, without going to the ends of the earth regarding having to go and buy expensive machinery or whatever. They were able to make and innovate, and all the great, a lot of the great machinery manufacturers there, like John Deere, they all were great smiths back in the day when they started off with the plough and the farm implements there, but very primitive, but they still innovated away, and look where they are now.
I suppose you don't have to go too far back in history to a time when there were a lot of blacksmiths.
Correct.
For instance, for horseshoes,
Correct.
etc., etc.
Yeah.
I know there's a smithing in my wife's family, for instance. I think her great grandfather was a blacksmith.
Right.
So at one point they were like the filling station of today.
Yes.
You pull in to get your petrol,
Correct.
or the tire place, or
Yes.
whatever, or the wheel balancing place.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
if you go back maybe a century or a century and a half, there's smiths everywhere. Do you know, were there smiths in your family?
Not that I know of, no.
Yeah, so this
Not
is
that I know of.
sort of a new thing for you.
Yes.
But you must have felt, when you started out, as you say, 10 or 12 years ago, you must have felt that, wow, that there was something in this that was just inherently natural for you.
Correct.
That,
Absolutely.
You see, I can do this, and I can,
At that time, and as we developed, all of a sudden we became aware of the Instagrams and then the Facebooks, and all of a sudden you're connecting to a world of people of a similar frequency, and you're looking at other great smiths and look at the work they're doing and look at how people can connect with them, and you get excited then, because then there's a possibility it can become sustainable. So that's the next biggest challenge, is to make it become sustainable and then try and sail your own ship. And luckily I'm able to manage that now. I'm only in my early days, but it's still very exciting now.
So for a long time you were just making things, and you weren't commercial.
No.
You weren't selling them.
Correct.
You were probably giving some of them away.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that was training ground as well, I'm sure.
Big learning lesson.
Yeah.
Big learning lesson. Because
so you make something wrong, and you make something wrong once, then you correct it, and as you're going along.
Every day is a learning day. There is no doubt about it. No matter who or what you are, every day is a learning day.
One of my great philosophies in life.
Yeah. Like no matter what you're doing or whatever level you think you're at, every day is a learning day. And the secret is to be able to learn from mistakes. The biggest skill I learned during the engineering days was to recover from disappointment, to understand disappointment. Like if you see a child play with a stack of Lego and you have a toddler building a stack so tall, they'll build it once and it'll fall over.
Yeah.
They'll build it twice, it'll fall over. They'll build it 3 times, fall over. Next is the tantrum. There's the spread of the legs, there's the kick of the thing away, there's a big wail. Now, if you consider that now in modern day design, we'll say, right, well, why did it go wrong in the first place? Why did it go wrong in the second place? What lessons are we learning all the time? There's a chance it can go wrong, but let's reduce that chance by doing whatever it needs to do it. And all of a sudden you're learning all the time. Like I remember when I was in the design engineering, in Dramone engineering, it was an incredible lesson to send in a design for test where there could be 2 million cycles. If it failed at 1.5 million, well, we're not there, but we're getting there.
Yeah.
And then there's a discussion on the improvements we need to make to the next prototype. Go and make them and then test it. Now, if you fail at, 19, very close to the pass line, it's a discussion then of getting you across the line, because then you've engineered it very well.
Yeah.
You haven't over-engineered it, but you're at the point where it's an acceptable and a certificate can be issued, and that's a good place to be. So that's the whole thing about learning from disappointment.
Brilliant.
And that's the same with the smith work. Not everything works, but whatever works, you've learned from it by learning from failures.
And if it has worked,
correct,
you can also
it's a celebration.
You can improve upon it then,
of course you can, yeah. But once, if you have an idea and the concept is there, prove it. and get to the point where you say, right, okay, it actually works. And then, you know, it's a great place to be, because it may have taken 2 or 3 efforts, but you've never given up. You've never stopped trying. You've got to keep trying. Keep at it.
Yeah.
And it can be said for many things in life.
A great philosophy. So, Tom, you were telling us there that you weren't just working with metal, that you also work with wood, and I thought this was the perfect opportunity to show off
thank you so
some
much.
of your work. Tell us a little bit about these both creations that seem to go together.
Yes, I call this piece the megalithic man of Loughcrew. So again, you have to kind of picture the context of the actual surrounding, you know, the burial chambers, Carbon East, and all the associated hills. Again, burial passages. So you kind of imagine, right, okay, what would that have looked like back then there, where the remains would have been brought to the sacred hill, would have been left then for the wildlife to remove the flesh, and then the bone would have been taken and fired, and then placed into the cairn itself, or the vessel, to enter the next world, as they believed. So again, it's almost a replication there, where, including your own good work, where we can see the passage tombs and we can see the vessels. It's almost a centerpiece of the actual cairn itself, where the whole purpose of that womb-like entrance ended up at a vessel where the ash would have been laid, so they would have had their time and passed to the next world. This piece is a piece of bog oak.
This is the bowl.
Yes.
We'll take out... Have you given him a name?
Yorick.
Yorick.
Oh, I'm only kidding. Yeah, I mean, it just came to me there, you know. But
We'll talk about him in a moment.
Yes.
But this is bog oak.
That's correct.
So bog oak is what, for people who don't know?
Bog oak is oak that has rested in a bog over many, many years.
In some cases, thousands.
Thousands.
Yeah.
I've had a piece analysed from that particular slab there, and it's between 3,000 and 3,500 years old.
Wow.
Yes. And it has been taken or extracted from the local bog in Bohemine here, where when the summer comes and, you know, the peat extraction with the excavators, they unearth large pieces of oak, which becomes a bit of a nuisance to those workers who say, no, we don't want this, it's in our way, can someone remove it? And of course, I just jumped at the opportunity when I got a phone call, would you like some bog oak? I said, absolutely.
Brilliant.
So I was delighted with that.
And the oak is... Sorry, get your thoughts together, Anthony. The oak is preserved by the bog.
Yes.
It doesn't rot.
No, the
in
bog,
the way that it would if it was just lying out in the
correct.
open.
It just creates that sealed chamber.
Wow.
Once there's no air or oxygen entering the cavity itself, it remains as it is. Now, the piece itself, I always look at a piece of bog oak and I try my best to write, what can we do with this without taking any more than I need to? For example, this piece here, all I wanted to do was shape the outside of it, as you see with that shape, and I wanted to shape the inside of it, as you see with that shape.
Lovely, smooth, concave shape.
No more material taken up, because there's no point of putting this in a lathe, working it, and it ends up in dust at your feet, and it's swept up and it's thrown in the pan. That's waste. So you have to respect that piece of material, the oak that has rested for so many years in that cavity, that now one is working it and making it into something, making it into a vessel, making a piece of art. And I mean, when you look at it, I mean, it's very interesting when you see the end grain, what story that can tell of that tree, which is aged between 3,000 and 3,500 years old.
And can I ask you, how was it dated? Was it through the tree rings?
It was a sample and carbon dated.
Oh, carbon dated.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know we've spoken on Live Irish Myths to Mike Bailey,
yes,
dendrochronologist.
Okay.
And we have a bog oak record that going back, is it 7,000 years,
yeah,
showing us the various climatic events that
correct,
have happened. And
yeah,
so this is amazing. This is a piece of wood from the local bog.
Correct.
That it was growing, that was last growing in the Bronze Age.
Right.
This is a piece of Bronze Age wood.
Correct.
Right here.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing in the rings,
yes,
are those years of growth.
Correct.
When the sun was shining and the summers came and went. 3,000 to 3,500 years.
Correct.
That's incredible.
And the pattern of the rings themselves, they're all very, very close together.
Okay.
With a bar exception, there's a section there which is quite wide between the rings, which suggests very poor summers.
Oh, I can see that. Now, you're not going to be able to see that on the camera, but I can see here where the rings are very tightly packed here, which means, what does that mean?
Bad growth, bad summer.
Bad summers, very little growth.
Correct.
So this piece of wood tells us something about the climate in which it was growing.
Correct.
And so how did you create such a smooth object? How is this done? You didn't turn it on a lathe.
Oh, that's on a lathe, yes.
Oh, it was done
Correct.
on a lathe.
Yes.
But you have to be very careful, I presume, because
Extremely.
there's a big crack in the middle of it.
Correct.
Presumably this is wood that could fragment
Correct.
at any moment. So.
Very, very possible. You got to assess the project before you even start getting it ready for the lathe. At the end of the day, nobody wants an accident. You have to have the experience call and say, right, okay, I want to turn it. How am I going to do that? I think I generated a strap for that to create stability so that I have confidence to be able to present the wood turning tooling and shape it as I shaped it. Otherwise, you're just dealing with a loaded gun. That if that thing flew off, it can be very nasty experience.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And it's quite brittle.
Yes, I can imagine.
It's a very dirty timber to work with. It's almost like a coal texture.
Right.
There's no shaving as such. It's just all fragments. It's
And
very
it looks
small.
black. Had it got that natural black in it, or
Correct.
did you have to colorise it?
No, that's natural. The oil that's on that there at the minute is just bringing that real black out, which is a
That
magnificent
is-
black.
It is beautiful.
Yeah.
It is the most beautiful thing. And so, I mean, I'm just asking, but if people were interested, would you be interested in taking commissions to make wooden objects?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But when you present it with a slab of bog oak that has that age, that's my number one piece of art.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And, I have to say, if you go 20, 30 years turning bowls and turning work, Stephen there on the Mythical, I'm sure he can appreciate that as well. To get a piece of bog oak and to turn it and to conquer the challenge and come out the other end with a piece that you can just say, leave it at that now, let the oil finish it and let it sit, you can walk away very satisfied.
I tell you, I mean, I can imagine there are lots of people who would want to have a piece, as an ornament in their home.
Yeah.
There's something natural, organic, rough and ready about it.
Correct.
But there's something extraordinarily beautiful and powerful
Absolutely.
about it as well.
It's the
isn't there?
time.
Yeah.
When we look at time and context, it's very easy to say 3,000 years, 3,500 years. But what does that feel like? What is that when you think of how long?
Well,
that
what's the
duration
average
is?
lifespan? I mean, not
Yeah.
the maximum lifespan. The average lifespan now is probably around 50 years.
Correct.
So you're talking 7,000 generations.
Correct.
Am I right?
I mean,
No, hang on, Anthony. 3,500 divided by 50 is 7,000, isn't it? Yeah, because if you divide it by one... No, sorry.
it's a big number.
We might have to cut that bit because I just can't do the maths. Very ancient. Tell us about... Let's call him... I have a name for him. Leonithic. Do you like that?
Love it.
Leonithic.
Very good.
Let's talk about your skull, because this is this is carved from a single piece of
Correct.
wood.
It's actually from my own forest here.
Is this, what kind of timber is this?
Elm.
That's elm.
Irish elm.
Wow.
Yes, and it has got the Irish elm disease in it on the right hand side there.
Wow. And how did you, I mean, the outside of the skull is smooth.
Correct.
And the inside, I can actually see where, with some sort of a chisel or
Yes.
an awl, that you've carved out
Correct.
the inside of it.
Correct. Yeah.
How much work was involved in that?
There's definitely a week's work on that.
Yeah.
4 or 5 days, yeah. I mean, the carving of it there on day 3, I'm certainly on the back end of the carving. And then the finishing of it. If it's badly finished, it looks shocking. If it's well finished, it's worthwhile then.
Yeah.
So the finishing is absolutely critical. It's unfortunately, it's a slow process, and it's, you respect that. You can't. You got to just work with it there. And I mean, you start off with the grits of paper, and you end up with a 320, a 500 grit paper just to get it really well finished. And then the oil can take to it, the timber can absorb that, and it really comes up very well. There's a lovely patina on that almost.
So the paper is like sandpaper.
Correct.
And it's on a roller, or what's that called?
Well, it's just sanding paper.
Yeah, but the machine.
No, it's all done by hand.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
no machinery involved.
No,
This
because
is
if I
incredible.
was to put a machine to that, it actually do more damage than good. It has to be done by hand.
And you've created these sort of eye sockets and the lips on them. I mean,
Yes.
is that just down again to sanding and?
Oh well, the carving was would have broken.
did the
a lot of work.
carving first.
But there's a purpose with that now. And I remember a good friend of mine there, Ollie Burns there. I'll never forget it. There, I had an art exhibition there with the Coke Club of Oldcastle there, the creative outlets. And I brought this piece to it, and Ollie was really impressed with it there. And he I'll never forget what he said. He said, "It's a thought-provoking piece." And I remember when I sat out the design of the skull, I said, right, if I make a skull, it's going to be a skull. But can I give it a little bit more of an edge that will almost give a fear factor, where it's quite aggressive, there's almost something there that just kind of puts the hair standing in your head. And that's what I did. I give it quite an aggressive side here, the same with the additional bone, if you want, over the eye sockets.
Yeah.
Now, someone will say there's no such thing as that, and I'll say absolutely fine, there's no problem with that.
Yeah.
All it is an imagination.
It's a work of art.
It's a work.
Yeah, it's a creative work.
And again, the whole idea is remembering the cairns and what happened inside. You know, you can visit them places with the greatest of respect, but you can almost become, just kind of falsely alluded to what actually happened there. Because it was quite barbaric if you think about it. You can imagine a loved one left on a scaffolding there for the wildlife to remove the flesh for 2 or 3 weeks. That would have been a horrific thing to be seeing, never mind to be actually being part of it. And then there was the time where they gathered all the bones and they fired the bones and they placed it inside in the tomb and on the vessel. That was every day. This was part of the ritual. But yet, in today's context, that's shocking.
Yes.
But this is what happened.
But for them, it was natural.
It was natural.
It's not glamorous, that's
not
for
glamorous.
sure. I think about, that recent DNA study of the man whose skull fragments were genomically tested and in Newgrange.
Yeah.
And that even at the point where they retrieve the bones from the elevated platform or the scaffold and they cremate them, there's a further breaking down that takes place, because an awful lot of the bones found in Irish passage tombs were very small fragments. And as you say, they were sort of close to the whole process of treating the dead.
Yes.
Whereas today we just hand them over to an undertaker who dresses them up and puts makeup on, puts them in a coffin.
Yeah.
And sort of, it's not that they're trying to glamorize death, but it's just that we are very removed from it now. That in prehistory, they were obviously very, very close to the dead.
Yes.
Very different way of dealing with things.
Treating the dead and how they died. When you look at the evidence there of a sword strike or flint arrows or whatever, it would have been quite horrific too. There would have been no holdback there. There would have been decapitation. Even the recent talk on the goddess Boyne. What was that word we discussed?
Dismemberment.
Dismemberment. What is that? Shocking.
Yeah.
It really is. It really
that
is
there was
incredible.
actually, there were practitioners in the Neolithic. We'll call them Neolithic undertakers, but there were practitioners who, when somebody died, they had to dismember them.
Correct.
And they had to put them on platforms, and they had to retrieve the bones, and they had to do the cremations. And we would think nasty stuff, but for them, it was an entirely different thing. So this is something that's inspired by prehistory and what's there in the archaeological record. It is a most incredible piece of work. And it just goes to show how versatile you are in terms of the materials that you use.
I've been blessed to be able to do, and while you are able to do, one goes and do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very simple logic. So when I can enjoy doing it, and again, Lough Crew, Anthony, it's half an hour down the road from here, beside us. So again, we're smack bang in the middle of all these incredible sites, and we're born and reared with it, and it's a blessing.
Yeah, I often thought, and I've said it many a time, that I'm very lucky to live 4 miles as the crow flies from Newgrange, and to live in a place where you're no more than an hour away from pretty much, not all, but a great deal of the sacred and holy and monumental sites of history and prehistory.
Yeah.
Like, when you live in the Boyne Valley, you are in essence in the centre of a huge archaeological park that extends for dozens of miles in each direction, but which has all of this wonderful treasure trove, not just in the material, of course, but also then in the cultural, in the mythology and the folklore and the legends that we derive so much pleasure from retelling, and that we also derive so much, I suppose, creative juice from, as it were.
Yeah.
You're very conscious of that, I know.
Stimulus, hugely, absolutely. I mean, that's there's where the excitement is. There's where the sparks are. Pardon the pun.
It's almost like the Boyne is flowing through your veins.
I'm representing the past makers. And I'm very conscious of that, of the creatives, of the innovators, and here we are in this day and age with all the technology we have. If we can keep a connection with the old, just to keep it keep it alive, keep working the hands. Don't forget that, you know, these are important as much as the smart devices, really. You know what I mean?
Wouldn't it be a fascinating thing to be able to go back in time
Incredible.
to the Bronze Age,
Yes.
to when this oak was
Stood
perhaps
tall.
growing,
Yeah.
and to meet
I mean,
some of the early smiths?
you know, when you think about it, you know, it started off life as a small oak,
Yeah.
you know, and all of a sudden time again passes on.
It started off life as an acorn.
Correct. Yes.
A tiny little seed,
Yes.
as it were.
Yeah.
And so the seeds have definitely been planted in this man's mind, and definitely sprouting green shoots.
Yeah.
But I wonder what it would be like to be at a smelting forge for the early bronze makers.
Incredible.
That, I'm sure that would
Yeah.
be fascinating.
Tremendous. I'm
And
so
to see how they dealt with the difficulties that they had.
I'm so excited that at some point during the forge, the blacksmith career, there will be the point where I can smelt and I can cast the bronze, I can cast the brass.
Wow.
That's a level a little bit above me at the minute, but we're on the stepping stones to it. If I'm making the hilt for a sword or the handguard, you know, I can cast it and then I can do the finer details. So that's all part of the vocabulary, and it's a tremendously exciting future when you think about what that involves.
It's brilliant just to think about the possibilities, because at the moment, let's be honest, it's rather convenient for you that you have sources, raw material
Correct.
sources, whether it be wood or whether it be
Yes.
metal.
Correct.
Those are relatively convenient because of the
Correct.
modern world we live in.
Correct.
I mean, for instance, scrap metal, which is something you make great use of,
Yeah.
is available in abundance. But of course, back then, there was no garage that you could go to and say, give us a couple of old lorry springs or, you know, bits of cars.
Yeah.
Back then, you had to actually, I mean, the first thing you had to do was take the ore out of the ground.
Correct.
I
Make
mean,
the bloom.
it boggles
It does.
the mind, doesn't it, to
Correct.
think of the challenges
Yes.
that they had.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the wondrous things they
Yeah.
were able to create
Yeah.
as a result. I mean, I think Irish art really perfected and reached a zenith in the Iron Age and the early medieval period, when you have the likes of the Tower of Broach,
Yeah.
when you have the likes of the Book of Kells, when you see that these generations of skill and knowledge have come to the point, this apex,
Correct.
where the most extraordinarily exquisite things are being created.
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
And you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
do
yeah.
nothing but stand back in admiration of them.
Correct. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, their determination, their ability to run with a task that was absolutely heartbreaking. You know, a slow, tedious, painstaking task, not a word of complaint. Go and do, and that was it.
Yeah.
So it was just immersed themselves in a completely different world, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. You know, when you think about what the time that they worked in, but yet they were so content, they were so happy. And yet we look at a lot of modern society now, and there's a lot of upset, there's a lot of anxieties, a lot of where there's a disconnect. Whereas if you can start hauling those people into an environment there to just, you know, find out for yourself, enjoy a making of some description, there's a tremendous amount of enjoyment from that.
Yeah, I often think that the people of the past, and you only have to go back a couple of centuries, but people of the past, the pre-industrial era,
Yeah.
were very resilient in many
Yeah.
respects, because they had to make their own food, they had to grow and make their own food, and they had to make their own clothes, they had to make all of the things that they used as implements and furniture and everything
Correct.
else, and
Yes.
their own homes.
Yeah.
Today, everything's so easy.
Well,
isn't it?
it
It's
is.
convenient. Was
Well,
not necessarily easy, because today it's all about getting into debt.
Well,
you know,
yeah,
and
but
paying for things.
the messaging is incorrect as well. There's a lot of marketing there that's suffocating, and if you're vulnerable or easily influenced, you can be sucked into this world of consumerism and all that. And all of a sudden, as you say, you know, you end up in it's a world of debt. You got to be careful. You know,
Yeah.
you have to be careful.
So, Tom, we spoke about your woodwork, but of course the principal material that
Yeah.
you use is metal.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about the sort of things that you make and the sort of materials that you make them from.
Okay, yeah, no problem. I use predominantly black mild steel, which is just a basic mild steel, run-of-the-mill, standard black mild steel. And I make my torques and my triskels and my spirals and my brooches. So that's basically all the raw material for that product line.
What else, just to give the viewers who may not know what's involved, what else would be made from mild steel?
Well, it's a general steel for a lot of fabrication there, so you could get the standard lengths, then it'd be box sections or flats. So I mean, it's a general run-of-the-mill steel there. It's not a specialised steel as such. If you go into specialised, a hardened material there, toolmaker steel, that's a different machine then. Different
So
tool.
you'd get maybe lorry trailers and machines that are made from mild steel, would you? Or?
Well, yeah. The chassis would there'd be a certain flex within the chassis there just to absorb some of that type of fatigue there over the life of the product. But the springs, for example, that would be a high carbon steel. That would be a very useful spring steel there, where I get a lot of tooling out of by working spring steel, by annealing it, shaping it to shape, and then I can go and harden and temper it. It becomes a very useful tool then. In fact, some of the blades have been made from the spring steel there, which gives a beautiful edge there when it's hardened and tempered and it's honed, then razor sharp then.
Show us some of the raw material that you kind of start out with.
So I could have a piece of a square section, 10 by 10, or it could be 12 by 10, cut to that type of length. And then I can go and forge. I can go and forge the body then of a pennicular brooch. It's just the body of it then. Then the pin then is a separate project then, which would be made then of a round material. That's a 6mm round. I could have a 10mm round. I can draw the taper out on that, the forge there, to give it a little bit of body coming down to a point. I can make then the little clevis then that'll wrap itself around the brooch itself, and then that'll be finished then ready then for the.
So this is made from the squared off
correct,
stuff,
yeah.
is it?
Yes.
And how is it just a matter of twisting it, is it?
What I do there is if you can imagine that now starts off as you see there, I'll draw the ends of that there to a point. So to draw the taper then from the middle of the section there right out to a point. I'll establish the scrolls, so I've got the scrolls then on both ends. And then what I do then is I use a small little cutting disc to cut a slot up on the flat face here and on all four sides, and that gives it a little bit of three dimension. It gives it a little bit of depth. So when I do go and twist it, you can see there it's got a nice dimension there where the twist is split. So it gives it a little bit of depth. It gives it a nice, feel to it there regarding, just a little bit more personality, a little bit more character. And then what I do then is I establish then the actual shape of the brooch itself by using some wood. I have to use the wood. I can't use the anvil because steel on steel, I'll actually distort all the flat spots there. I'll lose the edge in it there, and it won't look right at all.
Yeah. And so how long would it take you to make one of these?
Well, from start to finish, there's definitely 2 hours work there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this is one of the things that we kind of have to accentuate with Tom's work, is that it's most of what's done is handmade.
Correct.
It's not made with a machine.
Yes.
It involves time, heating and shaping, heating and shaping, heating and shaping again.
There could be about 15 heats in that alone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's getting it now to a real good, well-established forge that, it's right up to temperature there. I've got then a window of 30 seconds, 40 seconds to do what I need to do, and it's back in the heat.
Because it cools down.
Correct.
And when it cools down, you can no longer get it to.
You see, with a twist like that there, I will twist so far up the shank that while it comes out of the forge red hot, I have to stabilise some of that part of it there with using the cauldron and the water. So now I have frozen a twist that's already established, and then focus on the area that's not twisted but still has the heat.
Yeah.
So there's a balance act. If I take it out of the forge, so much of that is hot and ready to work. But there's only so much I want to work, whereas I need to neutralise and stabilise work that's already established. Although it's red hot, I need to kill that out and get the water on it to freeze it. So I work on the area that I need to. And that's what gives it that nice, even twist for the full length of the actual brooch. Then the early developments, and as I spoke to you about earlier on about the development of the brooch, and this is the disappointing element of the design, but it's a matter of practice. While I started doing that, the first models or the first brooches, the twist was irregular. It wasn't consistent to full length. Some of the brooch was too tight, and some of the brooch was too loose. It was very visual there. You could see the difference in the shank on the brooch itself, where some of it was too tight, some of it was too loose. But that's an experience that you learn from. Say, well, why did that happen? And when you can answer that question saying, well, this is what happened regarding the heat and the balancing with the water. There was no balance. You upset a twist that was already established. you try to work another part of the brooch for a twist, but instead you upset another part of it that was already established. So again, it's all to do with the learning. So that learning, it takes about 5 or 6 brooches to get to the level where you say, right, I've cracked it.
Yeah.
I now know what to do. But that's like, as I say, it's learning. Every day is a learning day. When you put the time into the brooches, there comes a point where after a number of efforts, all of a sudden it works.
Yeah.
But you know the reason why it works, and that's critical.
Yeah.
Once you know why it works, then it works.
So it's amazing because when we think about smithing, we think about heat.
Yeah.
But it's not just heat and fire.
Correct.
There's also the cooling and the water.
Yeah.
And there's the time that it remains hot.
Correct.
Which is the critical time that it can be worked.
Correct.
And then
Yeah.
it cools to the point that it
Yeah.
can't be worked.
Yeah.
And then it has to go back into the fire again.
Like over the years now, the one thing I would say about the smith work is the ability to work and control the fire. If I have the forge to forging temperature, I'm happy with my fire. But now the skill set is there where to place the steel. I can make corridors with the poker by arranging the fire in a certain dimension. So I can say, right, I've got the heart of the forge where I want it. I've got this corridor where I can place the work in it. I can cover it over with a poker. I know then in my mind how long it's going to take it to get to the right temperature where I need it to be. And it's out, it gets worked and gets back in. So, like, for example, the swan pendants, that's a nice little pendant. There's no point in having this part of the scroll red hot, whereas here is where I want the heat.
Yeah.
All the heat is there, but yet this is not hot enough. And all of a sudden, if I put that on the anvil and strike it with a hammer, I can make a mess of the scroll.
You just distort it.
It just distorts it.
Yeah.
And the one thing I'm very critical at is the concentricity there of the actual scrolls. I really do pride my work there regarding the feel of how a concentric scroll can roll in itself. The metal will do what it wants to do, but you got to allow it do it. If you don't give it the right platform from the forge, you'll never get it working. It takes a long time to get it that you're happy with it concentric. So once I get the bills established and I start from the center and I work out, it kind of works itself, but I have to be able to keep ahead of it. If I don't keep ahead of it, then I'm into rework or repair, and that's a negative space. You don't want to be there because then it's frustrating. You're trying to recover something that you've made a mess of. If I start off with a draw to taper, get a standard 6mm and it's drawn to taper, nice point, and I get the bill established and I get it off the anvil, there's a section on the anvil there that allows me start off that with the right, the right beginning, the right start. And once I get that established, everything follows suit. It's very natural for it to follow because at the end of the day, you're making a circle within its context of a concentric build from the center right out. It will follow itself because it'll always follow the path where you want. And at the end of the day, when you focus on the process and you do it as from experience, you're left with then a scroll that's nice and tight, that's concentric, with respect then to the artwork it represents.
Yeah.
Sure, I could have a very uneven scroll, and some will say that's bespoke, that's unique, that's fine. But in the context of, if you look at a lot of the stone carvings and how concentric it is, there was a lot of respect given to a spiral that started from the center and works its way out to the outside, and it's just a way of doing it.
So it follows a certain sort of way of working, but of course it does help to have skilled hands and that bit of experience.
Yeah.
So all of your swan spiral pendants start out as this.
Correct.
This is circular in profile.
Correct.
What did you say? 6 mil
6 mil
steel?
round. Yeah.
And so they all start as this.
They do.
And so that is the raw material.
Yeah.
And show us sorry, I have one here that I
Yeah.
can show you. This is the Tom. You can hold that up there.
Can do,
'cause
yeah.
that camera will catch it. And this is the finished product. I hate to use that word.
Yeah.
Creation is a much nicer word.
Well, yeah, I mean, it started off, and I remember Nora, a great friend of our own there on the mythical community there.
Oh, Nora Gaffney
Yeah,
O'Connor,
Nora,
the lady who swims in the sea every day of the year,
yes,
even when it's
absolutely.
Baltic. Good on you, Nora.
And it was a conversation over on the comments there that the swan became the reality then because of what the spiral looked like. And all of a sudden the idea came into my mind and said, you know what, let's follow on that conversation. And all of a sudden I've taken then the spiral, what you have in your hand, I've cut it to length there, I've got the neck, and again a little bit of imagination, a little bit of shape on the anvil, and then with the needle nose pliers we create the neck and the swan
beak.
and the beak.
Yeah.
And it's a swan,
And so from this
Yeah.
to that, and Tom, of course, being the modest man that he is, makes it sound very easy, and he actually makes it look very easy. But this is I mean, this is the start, this is the finish.
Yes.
And the finish, of course, combines two beautiful elements of Newgrange, specifically Newgrange, because you have the spiral, which proliferates at Brunavonia in the megalithic art, but you also have the swan, which is there in the stories.
Yeah.
And I think it's lovely the way you've combined that, the artwork with the mythology.
Correct.
And it's a unique item.
Correct.
It's a swan that is ultimately in the shape of a spiral.
Absolutely. I mean, again, it's art with a story behind it.
Yeah.
And when you can give a story to some art, there's a connection then. People can feel the connection with it.
Oh,
and
I
the
think
response
so.
with the swan has been incredible over the last 2 years.
I can
People
imagine.
have been so personal with their comments there. They have really connected with it, and it's a joy to just deal with people and, to...
And of course, the whooper swans, I've written about a lot about them in my work. They come to Newgrange to winter there.
They do, yeah.
From Iceland. They travel whatever that is, 1,000 miles in the winter time. Ironically, the swans come to Ireland in the winter because it's warmer here.
Yeah.
We actually do have mild winters. Just in the past 24 hours, a very good friend of mine, Jack Rogers from Newgrange Gold, who make oils, cooking oils and vegetable oils, rapeseed oil that's grown in the Boyne Valley. He shared a video of the whooper swans coming over his head in a big flock and coming down to land on the Boyne beneath Cruban there, west of Nowth, between Nowth and Slane, making this tremendous honk, this honking noise,
Yeah, that's it.
And it's the most extraordinary thing to see when you consider that actually the swans have been coming there, we think, at least since Newgrange was built, and that was part of the inspiration for some of the stories there. It's lovely to be able to combine those things, the elements of the art and the elements of the story.
Correct.
Tom, tell us a little bit more about some of the other... We have to, of course, talk about what I might call the pièce de résistance, which is the triskel. The triskel being the triple spiral. And of course, the triple spiral in megalithic art is only found at Newgrange. It is not found in any other Neolithic Irish monument, which makes it very, very specific to Newgrange. Now, when I first saw one of these, I thought, wow, what a genius. How has it been possible to make this from one piece of metal? And of course, the assumption was it was from one piece. It's not from one piece. Tom, talk us through what's involved in making one of those.
Again, the end goal is as you see it. So we have that as the objective of the criteria of the project. And then the how-to then becomes the challenge, so to speak. It starts off, again, a length of round, 10 mil round. And basically I draw the taper and then I create that from that piece of length.
And this isn't wound closely like the swan spiral. It's wound loosely. Sorry, that's an outtake. It's wound loosely with space between it.
Yes, that's quite tricky because
I can imagine.
Yeah, I want consistency, but I want to have it looking as natural a flow as possible. And that's the one thing when you learn how to scroll with gap. It's very easy that the flat spots become evident then inside the piece, and that's a niggler. Really, it is. It's like it's like buying a brand new car with a scratch in the bonnet. You don't want it. It's something that really niggles you.
He's a perfectionist too.
So I mean, look, you get a lot of pride there with the draw the taper. So that's got a nice point to it there. And then the secret is you start off then with the bill, and you want to have that in the forge there, where you want to heat the right material at the right temperature and be able to get to the anvil there and give it that character and give it that feel. And all of a sudden you have a very nice, naturally flowing scroll. Now, if I had a bad day and I come to the forge late or something was on my mind, it's incredible how that can be reflected in this work there regarding flat spots. I could have the best intentions and I say I want to get a 10 of these done, and if I'm not in form, the first 3 or 4 of them could be a nightmare because I'm not in the zone. It can sense the actual work in the anvil can sense that there's something that your mind is not where it should be.
Wow.
And if you just walk away from it, go away and come back at it, clear the mind, start with it, go at it again, it's incredible how it can just reflect then a good attitude, good mind space, and then it happens. It happens naturally, and all of a sudden you get one made and you can put that one down, and whatever you're working on that, you work that then as the benchmark, whereas that's where you need to be and that's what you need to create. And all of a sudden I've got then 10 of them made.
So obviously you need to make 3 of these for every triskel that you make. But how do they...
What I do is I make the 3 of them, and then I have to make a piece of material in the middle to replicate
the
that
centerpiece,
and then I weld them
to
together.
Anchor them all.
Correct, yeah.
And even after that, then I presume there's further.
Oh, there is.
Is there grinding?
There is.
Or
There's shaping it, because I have the centerpiece that mates up then with the 3 scrolls, and then I got to give it then its shape. This is where a lot of time is spent, where I'm polishing, I'm grinding, I'm giving it the shape, and then I come with the texturing.
And of course, it has to be said again, these are all handmade.
Correct.
So every triskel is different.
Correct.
They're not identical
No.
because of those little tiny
Discrepancies.
or
Correct.
little changes that happen, because each time you make one, you know, it's just slightly different than the last.
You see, the actual nature of the piece itself is forgiving to that very point. It comes from the center and it spirals out. So within reason, I have a little bit of a plus or minus shape versus if you had 5 of them. They're very, very similar, but they're not identical, which favours then the actual, you know, the triskel itself. I don't want it to be mechanically perfect. No. It's got to have a little bit of, you know, everyone has their own personality. You know what I mean? Like even the position of the inner scrolls there, they're not all in the same point. If you stack them up, there's slight discrepancy in them. There's slight discrepancies even in the weight of the tip. That's a very fine tip there. That would struggle in the forge, but I got away with it, and it adds the finesse to it then, which it works quite well in the end.
It does.
But I know if I had that in the forge there, that could boil up in me there and I could lose it.
Yeah.
And losing work then, having done the draw and taper, it can be very frustrating, because you've spent time preparing the scrolls and all of a sudden you've got something boiling up in the forge and you've lost it, you may throw it away. It's no good.
When I look at these, I see this kind of rusted metal, and I see this beautiful sort of black polish finish. Tell us a little bit then about when it's finished, Tom. It's not finished, because then you have to coat it, or you have to...
Well, I use a very old traditional blacksmith finish. It's as old as the hills, the linseed oil, the boiled linseed oil. It's basically an oil finish on hot metal. Now the metal is in the fire. I get that. I don't get it red hot. I don't need to get it red hot, but I get it very hot.
Yeah.
And then I apply then the linseed oil, the boiled linseed oil, and the oil reacts then with the hot steel, where the pores of the steel actually open up ever so slightly to receive in the oil, which acts then as an antioxidizing agent. Now it does need little help. It needs an atmosphere there of a warm house, for example. You couldn't just leave it out in the shed, because the surface rust will appear. But it discolours the metal, and it gives that lovely old patina finish on the
and over time that shines up if it's handled, or
Correct.
if it's like with the swan spirals when they're worn, because I know I have my own one here, and it's got a kind of a sheen on it that the original doesn't have.
Correct.
You know, it has that, and it actually gives it a sort of a nice look, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's personalised, it's become part of your day, you know. I mean, you're just enjoying it, you know, and that's what it's for. That's what it's about.
So we've seen the triskel and we've seen the swan spiral pendant.
Yeah.
And what else?
We
have
have
you been working
well,
on?
it's just a little bit of a fun item, so to speak. You know, I've taken the 10mm round again, and rather than with a spread, a scroll, I've just compacted and I've kept it tight. And it says, right, okay, let's have a little bit of fun here. The mythical letter opener. I mean, it's just a novelty item. It's got the tights wound spiral, and then we've got we've got the tang on it there, which is ultimately this here. And all of a sudden it's forged out flat, and I'm able to grind a blade on it such, but it's not actually a sharp blade. It's got a little edge and it wouldn't cut you, but at the same time, you know, it would make opening those letters that little bit easier. And again, it's a novelty item, you know.
Well,
so.
Tom, I can tell the viewers, as they've seen already, that you presented me with one of those.
Bit of fun, yeah.
And it's on my desk, in my little pencil pen holder.
Yeah.
And anytime I get I get lots of cards from the Tua, by the way, and I've had lots of Christmas cards, and it's the most beautiful thing to receive cards from around the world, just wishing you well. But this is now the official post opener, and it works very well.
Very good.
And as you say, it hasn't got a blade on it that would cut you, but it's definitely more than enough to smoothly open the envelopes.
Yeah.
Well, that's very clever, because you wouldn't think, looking at them, but it's, as you say, it's the same. What do you say, 10mm?
Correct.
But it's just wound tightly rather than wound woosely. There I go again. Wound loosely, lound woosely. I love those spitty woonerisms. So how much work is involved in this part of it?
Oh yeah, I mean that starts off, as you can imagine, like that there. So basically into the fire, forged out on the anvil, and I create that consistent thickness then, and then what I do then is I have to draw out then with the French chalk the shape of the blade, so to speak, and then I'll grind that, and I'll grind it on the belt grinder then to give it the edge and to give it a little bit of finish then.
So again, even though there's a little bit of machinery involved, it's all handmade.
Correct.
Each one.
Yeah.
These aren't molten metal that's being poured into a mold. These are all starts off with the raw material.
That's basically it.
And is worked artistically into, a finish.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the joy is when you scroll and you can finish off and say, right, how did that go? Well, it's either concentric or it's not. Concentric is what I need. If it's not, it doesn't make the mark. I don't want the flat spots. I don't want to be recovering from rework. No.
Yeah.
The quality is not that. I have to have a concentric, and it's doable. When you get when you get one done, it means it can be done. So you go and do that, and that's the benchmark. That's what you're always trying to achieve.
Brilliant stuff. So Tom, tell us, is there anything else? Do you want to talk for a moment about your blade?
Oh yeah. Well, again, this is going back to what we spoke there earlier there with the spring steel. So I've had a pal there who left me a little bit of spring steel from a trailer. So quite excited then to start the journey of making the blades. So this is the Boyne blade. So it's very early in its days. I've had the first forging complete. Basically what I've done is I have forged it there so that the actual thickness is narrower here at the front than it is at the back. So the spine of the blade is okay, it's consistent and thick. But that's now forged at the front. That's ready now to start the first grinds. The tip has also been forged as well. That started off there, consistent in the thickness there, right up here. Get the tip reddened and forge that back so the grain of the steel then is following the tip. So that tip would be tremendously strong. So again, a little bit of a scroll there for the pommel, and I have a little bit of antler from whatever deer. I have it there for age there, so I'm going to use some antler horn for the handle.
Brilliant.
And a brass handguard, and then a wooden scabbard there for the actual sword itself, and a little bit of leather. And
so this is basically an adventure for you into the unknown.
Correct and right.
It's a prototype.
It is, yeah,
for future work that'll
absolutely,
be more time consuming.
Correct.
But higher value items, I presume.
Well, it's a challenge as well to take on the project and be able to complete it, because I do see the opportunity to be the blade maker, to be the swordsmith. I'm really looking forward to go down that rabbit hole when it presents itself. But by degrees, we keep working away on the small items and keep building up and allowing a little bit of time during the week to work on the like that, because I know I can do it, but I have to prove that by doing it. And when it's done and it's finished and it's in your hand, that box is ticked. And then we can look at the process and say, well, right, what was the learning from that? And what was the mistakes from that? And take those mistakes, add it to the experience, and go to the next level.
Yeah.
Because I do see at some point where I will be casting bronze, I'll be casting brass, making the sword, the handguards, and all the pommels, all very exciting work. I have it in my head, but I have to prove it, and proving it is doing it. And when you do it, you learn mistakes and all, and you take that on board and you move on.
Yeah, sounds fantastic.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm confident enough that I'm able to do it, but it's just a matter of doing it now.
Well, I might also add that I'm confident that Tom can do it, absolutely, and I know what you're capable of.
Well, as I say, and again, when I look at a lot of the swordsmiths and the bladesmiths on Instagram and Facebook, and it's an incredible suite of talented gentlemen and ladies all over the world, and I'm saying that's an amazing skill set, and I'm here in the Boyne Valley, and all I have to do is pick up a book and say, wow, look at this, and almost every picture there's some warrior depicted with the shield and the sword, and as a maker and a creator, that's tremendously excitable, because then you can say, right, I can make that, and you go and make it, and you have the story of that particular story or warrior or whatever behind that, and it adds the value to it. And there was at one time the makers in the Boyne Valley that did that was their livelihood.
Correct.
So it's nice to be able to keep it going.
Well, I look forward to the whole process and seeing the finished product, and I also wish you the very best of luck with it.
Thank you so much.
And I'm sure, like all the things that you've done, I'm sure that we'll be sitting here maybe in 6 months or 12 months or 18 months time saying, wow, that worked out well.
Well, the support from the tour has been tremendous. I mean, it's great to see the feedback and to get the comments there, because it really is encouraging. Because it can be lonely when you're on your own working away here, but when you click on and you see the feedback there from the community there, that just gets you the pip in your step there.
Brilliant,
it's very, very encouraging.
Keeps you going. Is there anything else? Show us another of those just couple of bits and pieces.
Oh, some of me, these are a fun item again now. It's kind of needing a good wire brushing, but it's been sat there for the last 6 months. These are known as the Celtic warrior bands, the armbands. So you place them on your arm. And I read up about this, which is a very interesting story there. Basically, they were an identifier there of your rank among the Tua. So whatever tribe you were from, if you were called to battle, and depending on how brave you were or whatever you'd done during that battle,
how many heads you chopped
how
off,
many heads you
for
chopped
instance.
off,
Yeah.
when you got back to the king or the general, whoever was in charge of that battalion, they would say, right, Anthony, you done a stern job during that battle. There you go, and you wore those arm rings, and you walked around Drogheda, and the people of Drogheda would look and say, do you know what, you don't mess with that man because he's got his ranking there of how brave a warrior he was during that particular battle.
I don't think I'd end up having any of those. I wouldn't be battle fit, I don't think.
Yeah, so I mean, look, it's interesting, and I do see it in Sean's work there regarding a lot of the imagery there, and the great warriors and the great, and you can see the arm rings been used and been worn, and again, it's a status, a rank among the people, and it's a lovely thing to think about,
So doesn't seem to be anything that you can't do. I mean, and it's wonderful that again that the inspiration is all drawn from the stories, and
absolutely.
and in some cases from the archaeology.
Yeah.
And it really just goes to show that when you put the raw material into the hands of the right person, the extraordinary things can happen, and extraordinary things have been happening at Tom's Forge over the last couple of years. We've been very glad to sort of watch in on that and watch your progress. And of course, recently you took a very, very big step in life, Tom, which was you announced on one of the live streams that you're now full-time at this.
Correct.
So you've given up the day job with a view to making this your vocation.
Correct. Yeah,
which is basically following your bliss.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the dream was many years ago, this was going to happen. The question was when would the right time be? So I mean, everyone has a dream, and if you work hard enough at your dream, it can actually become reality. But you got to put the effort in. It doesn't come on a platter and present it to you, so you got to work. I mean 30 years ago I started collecting my machinery and bits and pieces that became available, whether they be gifted or there was something going for scrap. I always knew that I had a vision what I could do and how I can justify that, especially if you're working for yourself.
Yeah.
And again, I come to a crossroad there last August, September, and I said, you know what, I think the timing is right, and I bite the bullet. I don't want to go through life and you look back in life and say, you know what, you only talked about it.
Yes.
You didn't do it. You only talked about it. So that's a confidence thing. If you have the confidence, you go at it, you grab it with both hands, and the support is there, and just make it happen. Whatever you put in life is what you get out. So certainly when you put the work in, I think the reward is tenfold there, but it does require work. It requires a commitment. It's daunting, but you know what? It's challenging, and more importantly, it's exciting. When you think about Ireland and the little postage stamp of a country and an island we are on that great span of water, and look at all the Tua that's looking in from all over the world, and that's just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
So it's incredible how 15 years ago, if you were to say that smartphone, you would be able to connect to all these people, and it's a matter of pressing a button and you have a message, or you have a live feed, or you could talk on camera. We dreamed about that 15 years ago. Now it's reality.
Isn't it incredible?
It's reality. So when you have that when you have that tool in your tool chest, you say, how can I make the most of that? And all of a sudden, you've got contact from Australia, from America, from Canada. The world is a small place, so keep working away.
It is. It's proof, if nothing else, that you can do something that you enjoy.
Yeah.
So now you're getting out of bed in the mornings.
Correct.
And you're faced into a day of what we might call work.
Yeah.
But it's not work because you enjoy it.
Oh, absolutely.
And they say that if you combine your passion with your employment, as it were, or your vocation, you'll never feel like you're working.
Oh, no doubt about that.
And that's a beautifully privileged but exciting place to be, I'm sure.
What I can see happening, and I'm enjoying the development of it as we're sat here on your throne and the grand table set, and even in costume, I get a lot of satisfaction of bringing someone to the forge. And some people last year, they have never even held a hammer in their life.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you hand them the hammer, you hand them the steel, the forge is lit, you show a sample being made, you go through the whole sequence of start to finish, and all of a sudden, it's your turn.
Yeah.
And you watch the confidence and watch what just emerges from someone who's never done it before to someone then that spent 2 hours working with the forge with a little bit of instruction, enjoying the hospitality and enjoying the experience. It's a wonderful thing to be able to share, because That anvil, or the 3 anvils, large anvils here, they're all over 100 years old. They're really, really old
Brilliant.
anvils. So you can imagine the
Yeah.
story that goes with that. Now, there's 2 things that can happen to that anvil. It can either be continued to be used, or it ends up in a ditch, buried, and it's been forgotten about. We don't want to think of it like that. We want to think of it that the craft still continues, and people come and enjoy it, work the metal, but also the conversation, the ability to sit down and enjoy the hospitality, the bit of food, the bit of fun. And that rolls up into an incredible experience, and that's a tremendously rewarding thing. And I think there's opportunity for that as well.
Yeah.
Because,
yeah.
as I say, if we had a map of Meath, and you drew Newgrange, Knowth and Doubt, Fort Knox, Lough Crew, you know, all the wonderful ancient sites, and all of a sudden An Gobha appears amongst them all. Well, you're only a 15-minute drive then from any of these sites there if you make the effort to say, well, you know what, come and relax and just enjoy it, you know.
Yeah, and I'll say one thing. This is probably my 5th or 6th visit to the Forge. I have always enjoyed my time at the Forge. Time always flies when I'm here.
Yeah.
And I always go away with a sense that I've met somebody who is really alive to the world and is really, really following their passion.
Yeah.
I come away inspired by it, you know. And you're right, because sometimes, you know, my craft, of course, is writing.
Yeah.
I'm sitting at a computer or a typewriter.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm handwriting.
Yeah,
And that can be a very lonely task.
of course.
But the lovely thing is when you publish your work
Correct.
and you send it out into the world,
Yeah.
and then people come back and tell you what they thought of it and that they thoroughly enjoyed it and that they want to come and see the landscape, and sometimes they
Yeah.
take part in a Mythical Ireland tour,
Yeah.
and they actually get to touch the monuments, as it
Yeah.
were, to be up
Yeah.
close and personal
Correct.
with them, and to
Yeah.
sort of feel some of that themselves.
Yeah.
It's about more than, this isn't a manufacturing facility, really.
Correct.
This
Yeah.
is an artist who is, you know, plying his trade,
Yeah.
enjoying what he does,
Correct.
and hoping that
Yeah.
he can inspire not just the message of the monuments and the myths,
Yeah.
but also of the landscape in which you know,
Correct.
you grew up in,
Absolutely,
that
yeah.
you're totally in love with, that
Yeah.
you feel very well rooted to the place.
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
you're like me. I never had an inkling to wander. I mean, I have done some travel, but I'm so rooted to the Boyne Valley. I
Yeah.
never see myself moving away from here.
Correct, okay.
I'm just totally in love with the
Yeah.
place. I think I realised the power of it.
No
you
doubt
know?
about that.
And
Yeah.
especially, I was coming across here this morning. I was telling you before we started the cameras rolling, I was playing some of my music. I was playing some U2, and I passed the Ledwidge Cottage, Francis Ledwidge Museum in Slane, and I just thought about how many wonderfully creative artists have come out of Ireland.
Correct.
You know, and isn't it such a pleasurable thing that the place that we live in gives us so
Correct.
much,
Yes.
and that we're able to draw so much from that. And of
Yes.
course, we're grateful, of course, for that.
Correct.
You know,
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree with that. But it's finding that confidence within yourself and the visitor, because people have it. They just need encouragement. There's always different levels of confidence, but the encouragement can bring you up another level, no matter what level you're at. You know.
yeah, it's the same. I not at the moment because of COVID, but I have taught music to kids,
Yeah.
and like that, encouragement is 75% of the work.
Correct.
You know, that especially people, children in particular, but people in general who,
Yeah.
who lack a little bit of confidence.
Yes.
That Richard Moore, my good friend, his late father was a doctor, a GP, and
Okay.
Richard would often tell me that a lot of people would come to the house, which was where the surgery was. And
Yeah.
his father used to tell Richard that, you know, in an awful lot of cases, just sitting down and listening to people is
Correct.
like
Yeah.
80 or 90% of
Yeah.
what's needed to
Of
help
course.
cure them.
There's no doubt about that.
That
yeah.
they share their problem.
Yeah.
And in a similar way, you're
Yeah.
bringing people who've maybe never done this, and in their mind, they
Yeah.
never even thought about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
you're bringing them and showing them that, well, actually, maybe you can make something, and, you know.
There's no doubt about it. They can. Absolutely, without even question, they can. They just need that encouragement. It's like if you know you got to bring it right back to basics, because there's a fear element. And the one thing about the Forge, it gets the adrenaline going. There's something incredibly about a fire, and a fire that's raging there, that's right in front of you there. And when you put steel into it and you take it out, and you can feel that. You don't touch it,
Yeah.
you can feel it though. So you know the respect it demands. Your system goes into overdrive there because of the dangers and the adrenaline rush. So if when you can harvest that then into the context of making something, whatever it is, and looking at, well, this is the one you started off with. You've done 10 of them. Look at the 10th effort versus the very first one. What's the difference? And you can see that transition from never done it before to now you've got 10 under your wing, and you've done this, and you've made an effort, and look what's happened because of a bit of practice. You just see this elation, and it's incredible. It's hard to describe.
Well, I would consider that I'm not very good with my hands, and just to prove what Tom is saying, in a little amount of time, Tom is going to encourage me to try and make something at the forge. So do hang on. This video is we're probably well up to an hour or so far. We have more to come because we have a big announcement to make, and then we're going to go to the forge and I'm going to try and make something. I can't promise that I'm going to do it with the flourish that Mr. King does, of course, the talented An Gobha, but we are certainly going to give it a try. Hang on one moment and we'll be right back. So Tom, one of the principal reasons I came out to see you, apart from to talk about your wonderful work and where you're going with it, was that you and I have a very special announcement to make today. Well, I hope a series of announcements. So, a while back, in the early days of the pandemic, Tom became a regular viewer on the daily live streams, and it quickly became apparent that he was watching while forging, presented me with a beautiful gift of some oak trees, and they came on a special holder which Tom had made in his forge. And later I received a beautiful gift of a triskel and some other bits and pieces, and it just struck me that here was an extraordinarily gifted person, and who was working away and whose dream was to do this as a passion. So anyway, the long and short of it is that over the past while, Tom and I have been chatting and plotting and scheming, and I suggested to Tom that, well, why don't I give Tom a vehicle or an avenue through which he can sell his work? And that exists already, of course, in the form of Mythical Ireland. And so what we've done is, as of tonight, at the launch of this video, and I hope you're all watching from around the world, from this moment forward, you are going to be able to buy some of Tom's creations on mythicalireland.com. And Tom, we've already spoken about some of them because we were talking about the process of making them.
Yeah.
But we're starting off today with 3 items.
Correct.
To suit different tastes and different pockets and all the rest. The first item that you'll be able to buy on Mythical Ireland is the Swan Spiral Pendant. Tom, you can tell us about the price, and we should also talk about the fact that, you know, that each item will be sent by registered post, so there'll be the cost of the item plus postage and packaging, but Tom will tell you a little bit about what that postage and packaging will incorporate.
Yes. So the item itself is the swan pendant, and I do like to use a nice quality leather with that, and I've always been giving a little bit of extra leather, different colours there as part of the pendant, so that the customer can, you know, take and use as she or he may see fit. So the pendant itself is €40, and that's then plus registered post and packaging. So there's the different rates then, obviously, that Ireland, UK, Europe, America and Australia. So that'll be on the website, I'm sure.
You'll be able to select those individually. So if you go into mythicalireland.com and you go into gallery and shop, and it'll be An Gobha or An Gobha Creations, I think is what I'm going to call it. And in there, you'll be able to select each item. When you select the item, you'll then select Ireland, which is the whole island, because the postage for Northern Ireland is the same as Ireland.
Yeah.
Britain, Europe, and then rest of world.
Okay.
Yeah. And as I say, Tom, you're one of the things that I really loved about when you send something, you don't just shove it in an envelope and send it. You package them very carefully, don't you?
It's absolutely critical. I take a lot of pride in my packaging there, and I think the packaging is so important, just as the experience. because someone reaches out to make the order is very much appreciated. So as the maker and the creator, I very much appreciate that, and I always compliment that, including the package is as important there as the actual product itself. And again, I'm representing the creators and the ancestors again in the spirit of the product or the item, and I have to think very carefully and say, well, you know what, with respect to the Tua of the thousands of years ago, you know, and the makers and all that has given us what we have, and you know, for the world to reach out and look into our world and say, you know what, it's very important that you give them the experience, because I've had so many people with so much positivity before they've even opened the package, that they've experienced that there. You know, I use the hemp cloth or the old seed cloth there, and I think that's authentic there regarding the style and the nature of the work. And you know, I do like to give a little bit of the artwork there, and the simple words of a gift from the Boyne Valley, you know, and that goes down tremendously well there, and I want to continue with that, you know. It's very simple, but it means the world to a lot of people, you know what I mean. So you know, there's a lot of fun with it too.
It's brilliant.
Like,
so the swan spiral pendant is one of 3 things that you will now be able to buy on mythicalireland.com.
Correct.
The second one is the letter opener, which was inspired originally by something I said on a live stream that I was opening correspondence, and Tom said, there's an idea.
I had a light bulb moment, a mythical light bulb moment. So again, you know, it's a novelty item, you know, it's an item that I think can sit on a lot of people's desks there, you know, they can have a lot of fun with that there, and it's at hand. You get your letters, you open it, you enjoy that as part of your stationery collection, and that item there is €50 plus registered post and packaging. So again, the details are on the website.
Brilliant stuff. And the third item, you'll be excited to learn, is the Newgrange triskel.
Again, I've had a lot of fun with this item there over the last year and a half, and it's been tremendously good to me there, so I'm delighted to offer now and work with Anthony on this here. So that item is €100 plus the registered post plus the packaging, as per details on the Mythical Ireland website.
Yeah, and all we'll be saying in relation to this is, one of the reasons we left it until now to do this was we wanted to do it coming up to the time of in bulk. We both feel that that's a very wonderful time of the year when we're emerging from the hibernation of winter, when the days are growing, things are, you know, certain plants and trees are starting to grow, and you know, when you feel that life is sort of coming back as a sort of a time of growth. And we also wanted the practicalities demanded that Tom needed a bit of time to create a backlog of work, just in case there's a big demand, which hopefully there will be. But Tom's been busy for the past month or 6 weeks working away on creating all of the swan spiral pendants, the letter openers and the triskels, to have a stock there so that when you put in your order there'll be something there available for dispatch immediately. But we will be adding a disclaimer on each product that at busy times, because every item is handmade, allow for maybe a week's delay just in case, which hopefully will be the case. Tom will sell out and he's just having to build up stock again. Yeah. So we're very excited about this new venture.
Correct, absolutely.
Partnership.
Yes.
I'm delighted to support Tom in his work.
Well, thank you so much, Anthony, for the opportunity. I mean, I really appreciate that. It's been an incredible journey, so it's been thoroughly enjoyable. So,
well, it's a way of giving something back, and I've always said that if I could find a way to support other people who share the same passion as I do about the land that they live in, about the monuments and the architecture and the stories, then I would do everything in my power to give them a little bit of help along the way. Because you know what? I have benefited immensely from the help of others in my journey, which, as you all know, began 23 years ago when I met Richard Moore in 1999. And only in latter years I realised that along the way you had a series of, I mean, Richard was one, mentors and people who came into your life who sort of identified with what you were doing, who gave you encouragement, who, my publisher, David Givens at Liffey Press, for instance, who in 2006 took a fairly hefty gamble on me, a gamble which I think has paid off. Island of the Setting Sun at the time was the first colour publication. So I'm passing that on now, as it were, and hoping that you have the very best of luck and success, Tom, and you absolutely deserve every bit of it.
Well, you're so good, Anthony, and so good, and so appreciative of that. Now, thank you so much.
Now, it doesn't stop there. Probably the most exciting announcement is that from now until the last day of February, if you order one or more, you're not confined to ordering just one item, and we're actually going to put up a 3-in-1 special offer with a 15% discount. If you order one of Tom's items, or several, your name will be put into a hat for a free draw for what I consider to be a very high value prize. And I'm going to introduce that to you now, but before I do, I just want to say that this is indicative of the man that's sitting before me, of the tremendous creativity, the tremendous inspiration that he has drawn from things. We are at that time of year when winter is gradually giving way to spring, and that was marked in prehistory and in early historic times by the festival of Imbolc, which we also celebrate in the Christian calendar as St. Brigid's Day. And Brigid, of course, had a strong affinity with the smiths. She's a very, very powerful figure of inspiration.
Yeah.
And what better thing to do than a Brigid's cross?
Correct.
Wait till you see this. And I'm just going to take this up here and hopefully you'll be able to see it. We'll present it for that camera there.
Very good.
This is Tom's beautifully created Brigid's cross. And I'll get Tom to talk about the whole process in a moment. But I want to tell you that again, if you order any of the items we've been speaking about, your name will be automatically entered into a free draw for this. One winner will be produced from a hat on the last day of February. I'll do the draw in a live stream, and the winner will receive this item. Now, I want to tell you, because Tom might be too modest to tell you, first of all, there's great skill and attention and craft to making this. But secondly, don't forget that it has a monetary value. This is a €500 item, which could be yours for free if you order one of the other items. And we're going to take it off its little plinth here, Tom, and you take it there and you can tell us a little bit about what was involved in putting it together.
Yes, Anthony, thank you so much. I mean, I have a 4mm round wire used for the making of the cross, and I wanted to keep the concept of the weaving as tight as I could, and I want to keep it compact so that the symmetry is both represented on the 4 legs of the cross. And I didn't want to have it looking that it was a vulgar fabrication. I needed to keep the finesse of the cross in its original simplicity and its intent. So I've established a centerpiece here, and then I have a little bit of depth to it there where I have each of the legs welded behind that. And I've often made the crescent moon pendants. Well, I've actually used one of the crescent moon pendants here, without the crescent, as a little bit of a backup there for the cross itself, to give it a little bit of dimension, excuse me, a little bit of a 3D depth to it. So it's given a little bit of depth to it, and then the legs, each of which then travels left, right, above and below, and tied as it would have originally been tied, like the way Brigid would have done it. So it's again steel wound there by using the same 4mm wire. It's got a nice little bit of a tightness there. Again, looks very similar to the reed that would have been used, or the rushes that would have been used. And again, the same with the colour. I have a nice dark opaque green. I have a little bit of hint with a gold highlight, and then I use what's called a hot rod sparkle to give it a little bit of flicker before I go with the 2-coat clear lacquer. So it's well finished, it's well presented now, so I'm very happy with that there. And in the spirit of Brigid, and in particular the blacksmith of the day all those years ago, and I feel very humbled that Brigid is always looking in on the creatives, and particularly the smith, and the smith who makes the cross. I think again the luck of the Boyne Valley is with this now, and good luck to the winner and all involved.
Yeah, I can tell you that I've been in regular contact with Tom over the last number of weeks as he has brought this piece to life. Tom, you made an initial prototype.
Correct.
And it taught you how you could and couldn't do things.
Yeah.
And when you had made that, you say, okay, what are the advantages and the disadvantages, and you found a different way to do it.
Yeah.
And like, there's a huge amount of man hours, love, work, and creative thought put into this piece.
Yeah.
It is fabulous. What Tom didn't mention, it also has a mounting bracket on the back, so you can hang it on your wall, which is obviously important to say. And it's finished in this green colour.
Correct.
Which you chose. Why?
Because it represents the rush, the traditional rush that was used.
The colour of the rushes.
Yeah.
Isn't that brilliant?
Yeah.
I actually just feel honoured just to be able to hold it in my hand. And again, none of this is machine made. This is all put together by hand. I'm hoping, Tom, my hope is, and I'm just throwing this in there, my hope is that you will create many of these in the future.
Yeah.
But certainly this is a one-off item from the point of view that no two of these would ever be the same.
Correct.
Each one created by hand.
Yes.
So just to reiterate, this is a €500 item. Tom has very generously donated as a prize to all of you who buy any of the other items on the website, that you'll be entered into a draw, and on the last day of February, which this is not a leap year, is it? It's the 28th of February, or is it the 29th? It's the 28th, I'm pretty sure. On the last, whatever the last day of February it is, that I'll hold a live stream and we will draw the lucky winner's name from the hat. So what better way to celebrate the new venture,
Correct.
as it were, the new beginning for both of us, I'm hoping. As I say, a lovely way of supporting Tom's work, helping to put him on the map in the same way that others have helped to put me on the map over the years, that, you know, Tom can sell his work and make a living from it, because at the end of the day, that's what he is committed to doing.
Correct.
But this beautiful item added into the fray just makes the whole thing even more wonderful. So all I can say is get your orders in, and you never know, you might be the one who in a month's time is receiving this in the post by registered mail. It is fabulous.
Thank you so much, Anthony. You're very kind.
Beautiful piece of work.
Yeah.
And it demonstrates again something I've been saying repeatedly throughout this video, and that is that I don't think there's anything that you can't put your hand to in terms of, if you get an idea into your head and you just think, how could I do that?
Yes.
What's involved in terms of material, in terms of time, in terms of, you know, the forge and the heat and the paint and the finish and all the rest.
Yeah.
There's literally nothing you can't do, Tom.
Got to keep trying. You never say never, you know.
It is fabulously beautiful.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. So that's going to adorn the wall or the house or the home of one lucky Mythical Ireland viewer, I hope, in the not too distant future, and that is Tom King's beautifully finished Brigid's Cross. We are here at the forge at Bohermeen. We've had a lovely conversation. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know I have.
I've enjoyed it tremendously, Anthony.
And of course the hospitality of the forge is second to none. Now what's going to happen is we are going to go to the anvil. Tom is going to do the impossible, as far as I'm concerned.
Not impossible.
Which is to get me to create something at the forge, and I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah. So we'll move over there in a moment. As I say, in the meantime, it's www.mythicalireland.com. In the top menu, go to Gallery and Shop. In the drop down, go to An Gobha, whatever way you want to pronounce it. And go in there and you'll see Tom's items that you can, Tom's wonderful creations that you can buy. And until the last day of February, when you buy, you're entered into the draw for the Brigid's Cross. And what a wonderful way to finish our conversation today. Thank you, Tom.
You're very welcome, Anthony. Thank you.
A fabulous pleasure. And I look forward to more conversations in the future. Of course, in the meantime, we'll see you, no doubt, hammering away and forging away in the background on the live streams.
With pleasure.
Brilliant.
Well, we're going to make a swan, so we are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through it, Anthony, there, just regarding how I do it in a sense there.
Yeah.
From the length of 6mm to a swan. So I have a piece in the fire now at the minute, so
Brilliant.
that's up to that's ready now for the first hammering. So what I'm doing now is I'm drawing to taper on this. I'm basically taking the standard length and I'm drawing to taper. So we'll go ahead. So I'm basically using my left hand, rolling it over 90 degrees. So I'm using the hammer on that place there, and I'm coming back and I'm hitting that there now. While I do that, the opposite is true. The anvil is looking after that face there and the opposite as well.
Aye.
So I have the hammer operating 1 and 2, but yet the surface on the anvil is looking after the other 2 faces. Now while I work that there, you can see it coming to taper there, so I always start off with the square. Now that's lost its colour now, so it's not hot enough back into the fire.
Back into the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now normally I can do that in one heat. That's how I score my efficiency. I can do it's only a 6mm profile or 6mm round. That's no problem with that, because you're in the zone. I can go like the hammers of hell and just go at it, you know. But I want to show you how I establish a nice draw to taper. You've got to go with first principles regarding the 4 faces, because you're drawing 6mm to a point. You can't just go at it every way and any way. You got to give it a little bit of respect. So I go with the 2 faces and let the hammer or the anvil sort out the other 2. So that's getting ready there now. I've got a good forge going there. Now there's a nice fire.
That's a lovely fire.
Yeah, there's a nice fire there now.
Nice heat off that.
There is, yeah.
And plenty of smoke from the other fire, which is all adding to the atmosphere. And of course the safety glasses are very important.
Yeah, so we're back to... So I have that more or less to the point there. You can see it there drawn to the point. What I want to do is hit the diagonals now. So I go there,
yes.
there. So now I have... Now that's lost the heat now, because I'm only showing you how.
Yeah.
Now I can take it in the body. If I go and hit that at the tip there, it'll actually fracture it. So it's not hot enough. I need to get it hot.
Okay.
So we're on our 3rd heat now.
Already?
Yes.
But you, as you say...
Oh, I'll
you
do that
have
in one.
All of that.
Oh,
done
in one and one. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
That is the skill and the
Yeah,
experience
correct.
at play here now.
Correct. Yeah. I want to get the tip very hot now, because it was pointed without the red heat colour. I need to give it a good heat so that I can get a nice clean point. If I don't, it'll fracture and I have to cut it back and do it again.
All right,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
That is time lost and
Correct.
efficiency lost
Correct.
and everything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. See, I have a corridor now in the forge itself, somewhere where I can insert that piece of steel without upsetting the fire. The heart itself is quite tall in the forge, so I've got a good flame, I've got a good fire. Now you can see now that's a good heat there now, and it's got a good length to the heat. I'm using just the edge of the anvil. There's no need for big heavy blows, it's only 6mm. Come back a bit on the body, give it a little bit more taper there, it just adds to the first part of the scroll.
Oh, wow.
Now I'm happy with that. That's a good draw to taper there now.
That certainly is.
Yeah.
We'll just show that to the camera. Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at how quickly that has become like needle pointed almost.
Correct.
That is fabulous.
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff.
So that's ready now. This is where I have to concentrate now, because if I don't concentrate, the tip has been forged to a point, which means the point now is in the forge, which will be the first part of the work to go to a mess pretty quickly if I don't watch it. You can see it how even that's glowing, more so than the back of the body there. So I want to get that with a little bit more colour in it, but I got to watch it. I have to keep an eye on that now. If I don't keep an eye on it, I can spoil it and then I can lose it and I start over again. Yeah, so you can see that's coming along nicely. In the next 3 to 5 seconds, I'm ready to go. So I basically have my anvil ready. That's ready to go. So I'm using the edge of the anvil there, which is a nice shape to it there. So again, I'm not forging, I'm just turning, I'm shaping it now.
Very gentle strokes.
Just gentle strokes now is right. Using the heat that's in the body of the and every part of the anvil here, just to give me a nice a build, so to speak. Now again, I've no more heat. I need colour in that there, or I'm going to upset that. That's the fine detail that I need, that I said that I discussed earlier in the video. I like a nice concentric swan. So if I get that wrong, I'm into rework and correcting it, and I'm not happy with that. Now when I place that into the forge, I don't place it on its side because the flame is coming up with such intensity that that little point there will struggle. So I got to use the steel there to protect that point there. So I use it there. So the flame is coming around that, and that spine there will protect that delicate point, that delicate part of the scroll. So I go straight into the fire there, and it'll remain pointed up at that there, and it'll allow the body of that steel to get hot enough so I can start forming the scroll, but without upsetting the finesse of the point. You've got a nice draw to taper. You want to hold on to that now. That's very, very important. You see the forge now, you've got the heart of the forge there. Yeah. What you'll find now is when you have your turn, try and avoid looking at it, at the forge, because what happens there is you carry the flame in your eye to the anvil, and all of a sudden you have arc eye almost going to the anvil. That's ready now for the next part. I've got heat in that body still, so I'm quite happy to forge away. Now, next heat. I can't do any more with that there. The heat's gone from the steel. If I start striking that, all I'm going to do is add a lot of texture to that. I don't want to do that because I don't want to upset the draw of the taper that I already established. The draw of the taper has been clean. Nice clean point. I want to keep it that way. Yeah. If I don't if I work that with no heat, I'm going to make a mess of that with all the taps from the hammer. It's not hot enough, I get it back into the forge. But again, the same concept as before. Don't go into the fire on its flat either side, go in straight there so that the back of this, I need that now hot. Aye. That's been worked and that's finished, so that's fine. I need it all hot here so I can start to scroll. Now I'm counting the heats. I think I'm on 6 or 7 heats now. I do that now in 2 heats. Yeah, because you get used to it. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and you poker. Put it up with the poker. See, I'm all the time tending to the forge because it's opening a channel of fire because of the intensity from the source, from the air source. I have to keep an eye on that now. Like I've got a good forge going there, I've got a nice fire, so I'm utilising that there, I'm listening to it, I'm looking at it now, and I'm positioning the coals there just to keep it fed. I don't need to come in with a lot of coal, there's no need for it. I can have 2 parts of coal on that fire to keep me going for the next 7 to 10 minutes. That's how efficient. It's like sitting in a car. There's no point in putting your foot in the throttle and flooring it all the way and you're going nowhere. It doesn't make sense. Only when you put in the gear does the throttle become a value, because now you're working, you're going somewhere. It's the same with this here. I've got a nice forge going there. I don't need to add any more coal. I can pull in the coal that's just on the outside of there ever so slightly just to keep and maintain that fire. I don't want to reduce it, but I don't need it any hotter either. Not for this stuff. And you can see the colour there. That's quite a really generous there. Yes, I have all that there now, so I can carry on now. Again, you have to think of if you're in the kitchen and you're making a Swiss roll. You get you begin to get the roll. Now all the heat is gone from that area there. I use my leather to point. I need the heat in that area there. The work is done here and the scroll is established, so I'm happy with that there, so there's no need to worry about that. I need to get the heat between here and here so I can do and roll that up. Yeah. So again, position that in the fire. I've got a good fire. Just ever so slightly tender there. There's no need to go and upset too much of that fire. That fire is a good forge. So now it's a matter of waiting. And I can count on my head how long it needs to stay there. I know exactly. I can count 15, 20 seconds and I'll be able to take it out. You do it instinctively. You do it instinctively.
You're so experienced.
You know what the fire is doing and how the fire behaves. And there's been often times where the Mytflix has been on of a Monday night and all of a sudden, oh, sugar, I forgot.
You're too distracted by the storyteller.
Too distracted. The next thing I come back and, oh, sugar, we start again. So again, it's just a matter of getting that knack now. Do you see the way the roll of that is? It's nice and tight. I've got the heat where I want it, so I might as well utilise that.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Use the side of the anvil there. So again, me hammer isn't marking it. I don't want to mark it. I want to keep it clean. I want to keep it nice and clean. Yeah. But I want a nice concentric scroll, so you can see that there now. It's coming in there nicely.
Yeah. So skillful.
But it's a feel for it. It's a feel for it. And as I said to you before, if we start with Anthony and we say there's the very first one that Anthony done, now go and do 60 of them, do 70 of them, do 100 of them. hang the very first one up on the nail and say, that's my very first one. Now look at the one that you've done 3 weeks down the road, you've reached 100. Look at the difference. And it's like persevering, you know. You've got to keep at it. Don't be frustrated. You will be disappointed, and it can be very, you know, annoying, but keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. It's like riding a bicycle. I could give you a bicycle worth €5,000, and you could throw your leg over it. Down the road, you'll fall over. But yet, you didn't give yourself a chance to just be patient. Give it a chance to get, you know, to learn how to ride.
Writing is the same. I've written some awful rubbish.
See, I'm utilising all the heat now. I can stop there now because I don't have the heat there. I need that heat there where all the heat's in the scroll. But if I keep battering that there, I can lose that concentricity then, and it'll look wrong, and I don't want that. That's me.
You saw just in a few seconds there, it went from red hot to orange hot to, and now it's lost its.
But when you, there's no light between that there, because I've utilised the heat where I need the heat, and I've used the body of the scroll to roll up on itself, because it's actually helping me create that, because it's all nice and tight. So again, I've got a good forge there, but I'll just tidy it up ever so slightly. I'll just bring in that coal there and just give it a little tidy up. There's no need to disturb it because I've got a good throttle there. You can see that part of the forge there where I've got a really good flame. That's the heart. That's the real centre. It's the centrepiece. You've got a right good throttle there where you've got a nice air charge coming into the forge there, and your workpiece is just sitting above that, and again it's heating it just exactly where you need it. I don't need the heat in the scroll. That scroll is finished now, but I need the heat there so I can travel a little bit more.
So you're putting the scroll beyond the heart of the fire.
Correct. And I'm doing it without looking at it now, because I can feel it. I know by the length of that there sitting on the edge, I know where I need to go. We're nearly actually there at the point. Now we'll go a little bit larger swan than I normally do, just for the sake of showing the scroll working itself. Not hot enough. It's always easier to check it and be not hot enough than over hot. If it's overheated, it will boil up and will start sparkling, and the metal suddenly becomes a liquid, and it just disappears and it spoils it. Because at the end of the day, the metal does become a liquid with enough heat in it. But I don't want it
hot at this end.
No, it's okay. I'm happy enough. You lift that there now.
Oh yeah.
But it's always very good practice to assume it is hot, because instinctively you can touch it, and all of a sudden your instinct will
grasp it too.
Tom and Jerry moment, you know. Now all I'm doing is just tapping, but I'm hitting it at the 11 o'clock position, where I know by striking it there, I will get the roll of the scroll nice and tight with that now. So, like, I'm nearly there now. I'll go a little bit more, just to give it a little bit more body.
So wonderful to see this up close. There's never a dull day at the forge. It's always eye-opening. It's always enjoyable. And he makes it look simple.
Well, it's practice.
It's practice, but it's also skill, you know. There's definite skill there that, you know, not everybody has skill with their hands, you know. Well,
everybody has it, but it just takes more development. It takes more encouragement. It's like if I give you a script of Chinese characters, and you look at it and say, I don't understand any of this. But yet if you take it one at a time, and even spend 1 week just looking at one character, instinctively then you know what it means. So there your learning has started. You've begun the process of decoding all that, and now it makes sense. But it takes effort. It has to take effort. And you only get out of something whatever you put into it. It's like everything in life, you know. Now, I'm in a good heat there now. I've got a lot of heat there, but I'm not forging this. All I'm doing is scrolling that. That's hot enough now to, you know, roll naturally with itself there. So I'm not doing any work other than utilising the heat of the steel that's hot there, and I will stop there because there's no more heat there as such, and I don't upset that, because all of a sudden I'll have gaps appearing here. And if I start getting gaps there, if I start getting gaps around the edge here and I start repairing it, although I can repair there, all of a sudden it opens up somewhere else and it makes a mess of it then, and then you're back to square one. And I've learned that by doing, because you learn by the mistakes.
What is the stuff that's flaking off the surface
it's
of the steel?
It's just a mill scale. While the steel is processed in the steel mill, it goes through a series of rollers. So that, on its last passing through the steel rolls, as that steel is red hot, the scale is formed by the rolling dies, because it's got a hot steel going through cold dies, and it basically just makes like it's all there. You can see it there.
Yeah,
you can see it there.
It flakes
it's
off.
all a flake there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a good forge there. I'm happy with that now. I'll be very happy with that, working with that now. We're nearly there with our swan body. It's not as smoky now.
No, but there's more flame. And
There
it's
is.
lovely and toasty here right now. Because it is January after all.
It is,
It's not
yeah.
the warmest day in the season.
Again, all I'm doing is tapping. I'm going at that 11 o'clock position there, if you're going to use the clock as a reference, just to tap it ever so slightly forward so I can create that scroll. I have it nice and tight along here, so that's all what I'm looking for. I'm always looking for that. So now, I'm not into rework or correcting. I'm travelling forward, I'm being as efficient as I can, and I'm happy with that. Now, would you like it a little bit bigger? What do you think?
Yeah, why not?
We'll go a little bit bigger
Yeah,
because
why
we've
not?
got the steel.
Yeah. That's a nice big one.
Yes.
Lovely. So what you can't see on the camera is the lovely view of the trees. We're out in the wilds of Meath.
Yes.
And only the birds for company. It's lovely. I've seen robins. The robins are.
There's a lot of robins
hang
around,
around.
yes.
And I've seen a wren.
Right,
I've
okay.
seen lots of blue tits, crows,
Yep.
pigeons.
Sparrowhawk.
Oh, we saw the sparrowhawk
Yeah,
earlier,
yeah,
right? Yeah. And of course there are buzzards in the woods as well.
There are, yes. Yes. Yes.
They're magnificent birds.
Yeah, there's no
Really
doubt about that.
beautiful
Yeah.
birds. To show you some of that stuff that flakes off the steel there. Very brittle. I have to admit to being slightly daunted by the prospect of doing this.
Not a bit of it. Confidence, my good friend. Yes.
We'll see, we'll see. It'll be fun if nothing else.
Again, it's a very easy form because I've got a lot of body now in my scroll, so I'm quite happy with that. And it's just basically tapping it there just to keep it in line. I want to keep it in shape,
Yeah.
but I'm not doing any forging, I'm just doing directing. I think we're looking at that. What do you think?
Beautiful.
Yes.
Really beautiful.
Now, what I'd like to do now is to get you to make that sample, and we'll bring the two of them that far on because I have to cut that with the saw, and we'll be using the vice then for the next part of the swan. Is that okay?
Okay, yeah.
So your turn now, Anthony.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And into the part of the forge.
Right, yeah, use your rack there as well, yeah. Just imagine the tip now, the first 3 inches into there. All you want is to tip the forge the end of it, or get the end of it warm.
And which end of the hammer am I going to
You're
use,
going to
Tom?
be using the flat spot, and you're going to be using that zone there of the...
Flat spot.
Yeah, you're going to be
And so it's 90-degree turns first.
Yes.
Try and get it squared
Right.
off first,
Yeah.
and then we'll get it back into the...
Yeah. Now you'll be using that part of the anvil there now, just this part here now. So you're using all that part there now. Don't use that part because
Okay.
what happens is the hammer tends to strike it first. You want to work on this part here, so you're all the time over, or just slightly over.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, I feel, even just from watching Tom, I just feel that I have a little bit of knowledge already about what colour the steel should be before I bring it to the anvil. And I was able to tell that it's not ready.
Not yet.
But-
Watch it now.
Beyond that,
That's good. Nice. That's it. You use your
I
hand
don't-
at the end of the hammer.
I don't think I'm...
That's it. Back into the fire.
I don't think I've squared it off very well, to be honest.
That's heat number 1.
Yeah, number 1 of 40. Yeah.
We'll use up a
I wasn't confident that I was turning at 90 degrees each
There's
time.
a lot of confidence issues there. Left hand and the right hand. You're holding the hammer up here. You need to be here with the hammer.
Okay.
You need to be, don't be afraid to. You're not going to come with a huge big hit. There's
Yeah.
no need. It's a small little 6mm. But don't be afraid, to get into rhythm there. like you'll see it happen. You're tapping it there. That's what you're doing here.
Yeah.
You need to see the confidence there. The left hand is going to go 90 degrees over and back, and your right hand is going to come up here, and you're going to work it. You're going to get that drawn to taper. Watch the difference now with this one here now. That's ready now. That's it. Perfect. Look at the difference. Look at the difference. Perfect. Now feel what you're doing there now. You're just
It feels different.
correct.
It definitely feels different, Tom. That definitely felt better.
Correct.
I think that's
Back to
probably
the
about
fire, let's get her hot
that.
again.
That I definitely felt like I had a better clue of what I was
Correct,
just
right.
from your little bit of instruction there.
One heat and look at the difference.
Yeah,
Big difference.
yeah,
See, the confidence is coming already. Now, while that's in it, you're thinking about your next one, so I always just give the angle a little wipe there to prepare. You're always getting ready while that's in heat there now. Because
Yeah.
you're thinking, you're utilising the time. You know, you've got to use that. Your fire, you've got a good fire there. I think you're ready to go. That might just start there. Yeah, go ahead.
okay to go, is it?
You're okay to go. Again, get the confidence. Long handling on the hammer. Nice and easy there. Good stout strikes. Purpose to the hammer strike. That looks brilliant. Really well done. Put that on. Yes.
Oh, that is drawing to a much better taper than I remember doing this before with you,
Correct.
and it was.
Get the fire. Now, what I want to do now is the next heat. You've learned the lesson from the very first strike with the hammer, so now the third time of asking. Look at the confidence now for this time here. Rather than just striking it for the sake of striking it, you know, let's give it some intentions and meaningful. So you're saying, right, we're drawing to taper. Here's how much taper we've drawn. Now let's give it the finesse. Get the feel for it there. So rather than just striking it for the sake of striking it, feel what you're doing now with a good solid strike with the hammer. So you can see that the draw to taper comes to a point where you have a really nice point. That could be ready now. Yes, good heat. Nice and controlled. That is wonderful, yeah. Big difference. The left hand roll it over. Yes. Correct and right. Very well.
Looks a
done.
little bit misshapen. It's a
No,
little
you
bit.
can correct that.
It's a little bit bent at the top,
That's
but
fine.
it's definitely coming to taper. I did this once before with Tom last year,
Yes.
and I'll be honest, I didn't feel that I drew it out to any decent taper at all. I feel much better this time already.
Yes. Of course it
This
is.
is only my second time doing
That's
this.
exactly it, yes. That's what I'm saying, it's a conversation of encouragement and just giving it a little bit of a lift. And when you do it, you see you're doing it and the evidence is there in the piece. So we have to be careful now, that could be getting very hot at the very tip there now, so don't get too hot. Yeah, you're good, that's good, girl. Nice confidence now there. Feel like you're drawing to taper. Use the hammer with finesse where you need to use the finesse on the very tip. Give it a little bit more of a whack there on the more of a body material. So now you're feeling you're giving it to draw the taper. Perfect, that's exactly right. Back into the fire, let's get
That's
it hot
not
again.
bad. Look at that.
Getting
It's
there,
not
well
bad.
done.
It's a bit rough already.
No,
It's-
you want to get the donkey work done there where you've got the material moved. But what happens there is while you have it moved, now you're adding the finesse to it. You want to have it looking good. You can get the material moved, but you want to have it looking good there. You don't want to have it steppy. Where it
Yeah.
looks 6 mil down to 3 mil to 2 mil, 1 mil. No, give it a
Yeah.
little bit of finesse.
Yeah.
Because it reflects back in the scroll. Like you can see all that there now. The transition between there and there, and that makes the difference.
Yeah.
Watch that now, that's getting hot. Yeah.
And I feel that have I to move it a bit more with my
Yes.
left hand.
Give it a little bit more finesse there on the point. Let's have that nice and sharp. Possibly taller hammer stroke. Yes. See where the hand adjusted there now. You're more comfortable. You're more controlled.
That's not bad.
You're getting
That's
well
not
done.
bad. It's a big improvement on my effort last year.
Well,
I can tell you
It's
that.
all about learning, you know. It's all
Yeah.
about experience. As I said, when you do number 1, have a look at number 20. Have a look at number 30. Look at the difference. It's a huge difference.
Yeah. Of course, the patience of the master teacher helps enormously. Big time. That's the encouragement
Well,
and
that's
the
what it's about,
patience.
yeah.
So we're just going to finesse the tapering now.
Correct.
Is that the idea?
Yes, I want to have it looking good now, yes. You see, you can feel what force you need to create a nice tapered tip. That's very good there. Yeah, roll with the left hand, give it a little bit of movement there, yeah. Very good. Well done.
I have to say,
Well done. That's very good.
I'm super impressed. I've been able
Well
to
done.
do that.
Yes.
That's fantastic. And again, all courtesy to the master.
Practice. Get them under your wing. Like if we wrote down now the experience, we're on heat number 6 or 7 now. While you get mastered, or while you're mastered, now you say, right, I want to do it in 3 heats, just as an interim, so I'm learning.
Yeah.
And then ultimately you do it in 1. But that's a bit down the road.
I feel that the point is okay now, is it?
It's nearly there.
It's more the body I have to work on, is
Yeah,
it?
well, get the tip a little bit pointier.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. This is the finesse. This is the real. Yeah. Sit there. Roll the left hand.
Yeah, it's coming too flat there now. Oh, it's
Coordinate your right hand now when you're left.
something happened in the nettle there.
Give it a little bit of heat to correct that.
Yeah.
You see, if you kept having that, you actually fracture it now.
Yeah.
So you need to get it hot.
That's all that was happening. It
Correct,
was just
yeah.
losing its heat.
Your left hand wasn't working with your right hand. You need to work the left hand to roll it. Because you flat spotted it with the right.
Yeah.
The left hand
I wasn't
switched
rolling
off.
it enough.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's got to have enough. Yeah. Now roll the left hand. Work your right hand with the left there so that you have a point now, not a flat spot. That looks really good. Keep rolling the left hand there now. Well done. That's a good job. That was really good. I think that's as good as you're going to get there now.
That's
Very
not
well done.
bad, is it?
Very good.
That's
well
not
done.
bad. Not bad, Murphy.
Now, the next one is the big challenge now. You have created the draw the taper, that's fine. We now want to start the scroll. We're going to use that part of the anvil there. Now, you're not forging, you're just
I'm just going to tap it over, is
very
it?
slightly. Watch that.
Just to start.
Yes.
This way?
Very gently now, yeah. Yeah. Push that out there again. Go ahead. Lift it up there. Now roll that back in itself there now. Oh, back in the fire. Let's get it hot. Right. So far, so good.
So far, so
Yeah.
good. I'm just waiting for the moment where I completely screw it up.
No. We're on the right track.
Of course, because it's thinner at the top, it doesn't
Right.
need as much time in the fire. Is that
Absolutely,
right?
That's what you have to be very careful with. Yeah, you've got it hot enough. Yeah.
And again, the same thing, is it? Or
Yeah. Slightly tap it down. Yeah, roll it over. That's it. Well done. Now visualise forming that in your mind there with your index finger and your thumb. Now, that is absolutely brilliant. So far, so good.
That's
You
not bad,
really
Murphy.
are well
Look
done.
at that.
Now what we'll
That's
do is
not bad.
we'll work with that now rather than try and get that any tighter because I don't think it's a little fair to try and give you that challenge.
Yeah, no.
You've got a really good build there now, so we're going to build on that now.
We're just checking the time because there's 20 minutes on the camera for each. That's why I'm looking at the clock. The camera stops at 20 minutes, so we have to do it in 20-minute
Watch this now,
segments.
watch this.
And again, it's just tapping it over, is it?
Roll it over there now.
Oh, this way again.
Yes, yeah. Now turn roll it over 90. Yes. Now again, visualise in your mind. Over to things now, just take it easy. Oh, back. Yeah, that's it there now. Very good. Back in the fire.
So it's a
you wanna
combination of downward strokes and then
Correct.
backward strokes.
You're visualising in your mind a roll, circular, concentric. But your hammer in your hand is not connected with your mind just yet because you know what you want to do, but your hand isn't doing it, so you're trying to make that happen.
Yeah.
You'll do that from experience.
Hand to eye
Yes.
coordination.
Yes. Try that again now. So, yeah. Right now, when you turn it over, don't go too fast with the hammer. Let's see every stroke of that hammer with purpose now and intent. Now come down, straight down. Whoa. Back in the fire.
But
You've
that-
got a really good start there.
That isn't bad.
That is a really
That
good
is not
start.
bad.
Now, what we want to do is get it hot at the back of that. You place it in the fire exactly as I've asked you. It's vertical. The back of that will protect the finer detail. So now you want the heat in the bigger material so that you can roll it.
And so I'm just doing the
Yes.
strokes, the 11 o'clock strokes now. Am I?
This is the critical part now. Once you get this kind of over the hump, the scroll will form itself. But if you can get over this now, this will be a big milestone.
Is that okay?
That looks good, Anthony, yeah?
So just
Just now, nice,
gentle.
gentle taps. Every hammer stroke has intention to it, yeah? Now come back. Yeah. Now what you can do there is just let's have a look now. Come back up, straight up. Give that a little tap, little tap, little tap. Whoa, 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 whoa. Perfect. You're not going to get any better than that. Back in the fire now. We want to get all that now hot there, right? All along here hot, right? That's where we want to go
So
now.
we're pushing it a little bit further in.
Yes. but you're concentrating now on where the heart of the fire is. You don't want that to spoil the work you've already done now. You're good. Good.
The master. If he can teach me to do this, and I can make a half decent job of this on only my second attempt, he can teach anyone.
Anyone can do
It definitely helps. Patience and encouragement.
Yes.
Huge part of it.
Right. Exactly, you've got a good position there. And turn it over the edge here. Nose dive it there, give you a little bit of help. Yeah. That's it. Back over, and I start rolling there now. Strong left hand. Give the hammer something to go again. Back in the fire, you've lost the heat. Getting there. You'll notice that your left hand is back in the hammer now, you see.
Yeah, I did
you're
notice
not
that
getting-
actually.
You're not getting the benefit of the hammer when the left hand is moving.
Yeah.
So on this one here, have as strong a left hand as you can. Rigid, no movement. So when you give the hammer a strike, you get the benefit of it and you'll see the shape coming.
Yeah.
Because the steel is the sacrificial part. At the minute your left hand is all over, you're not getting the benefit of your taps.
Correct.
You don't overhit it there because then you're afraid you can spoil it. You know what I mean?
He's a lot stronger than me, by the way. Just saying. He's got bigger hands.
Well, that's a good fire, yeah. Strong left hand. See the difference. Come in or two, go, yeah. Let's go back up there now. Whoa. Come back now here. No. Come in at 12 o'clock. Yeah. Roll that up there. Yeah. Perfect. Sit. Back into the fire. That's what we're about.
See what the guiding hand has done there.
Yes.
That's
Yes. But you can see what you want to do now regarding just to get that, make that tight.
the guiding hand was very helpful there because I literally wouldn't have, you know.
The left hand is critical.
Yeah, there's so much movement involved.
Yeah, you
know.
see, the sacrificial part is not the left hand, it's the piece you're working on. And however hot you can get that steel, that's what will move. Anything else won't, it's rigid, it's not hot enough,
Yeah.
it's too strong. So where you have that now in the fire, that's ready to go now.
Ooh.
Now, just tap that down now and close that there, yeah, well done. Now, start your rolling. Again, visualise if you're making a Swiss roll in the kitchen, you're on the table, you want it, you've got the concept, you've got the feel of it there now, you know what you want to do. Use the edge of the anvil there if you want to turn it around, exactly. You're utilising the anvil there.
And flattening it out.
That's fine.
Just again, just to show the...
1 second now while you have it there. Well, that's what it's for, you know.
Thank you for your help.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't just perfect.
No, that's fine, but that's you know,
But that's it.
You see, I can do it without the needle nose plier. In this case, we just needed a little help to bring it back in, but that's not anything wrong. It's just go and do it. You know?
Second time out.
Yeah. You see, the heat's in the steel. If that became cold, then you wouldn't do it just as easy. It would be more difficult.
It's amazing the heat off that just from
Yeah.
this distance. Lovely heat off it.
That's okay. Strong left hand again. If you want to just turn that over. Yeah, come over. Sit there now. Yeah, come with this. Yeah, oh.
Oh, well, yeah, I
Yeah.
see what's happening. No, this
Yeah,
way
that's
again.
it. Yeah, strong left hand. That's it. See the difference there, look. Hold the edge there now. Yep. You're in control. You see what you're doing? Perfect. Back into the fire. Happening.
Well, your helping hand is definitely making a difference.
You know, it's all about,
Definitely
it's all
making a
about,
difference.
You know, just doing it.
I think it would be a little bit looser and rougher
Oh, no,
if
it's
I
fine, no.
wasn't getting that little bit of help.
That's what I'm saying though, like, you know, put it down to number 1. Do 20, do 30. Look at the difference. It's a huge difference.
Yeah. So I hope everybody enjoys this. This is as much as I am enjoying the experience of I'm working it. And I never thought I'd see the day I'd be smithing, you know.
Good heat, yeah. Now compress that now, tighten that up, yeah. See what you're doing, you're in control. Yeah. Now you're scrolling. Well done. Back to the fire. Perfect, well done. You know where you want the heat now. You want the heat there
Correct.
now.
In the straight part.
Correct. Because
Yeah.
if that scroll glows, it's no good to you. The work's already done there.
Yeah.
So now you're concentrating on where you're putting it in the fire. You now know where it is. And you can anticipate in your mind's eye 15, 20 seconds from now I'm happy to take it out and do it again.
Yeah.
And all those incremental little movements in the scroll creates the scroll.
Yeah.
Now, if we look back in the video, you're probably on keep number 12 or 13.
Oh, look.
So don't worry about that. That's not a problem. Now, that's not anything.
We're not efficient just yet.
No, but that's the thing. No,
Yeah,
that's just down to doing the first one, and that's always whether I take 100 pieces, it doesn't matter.
I definitely feel that I've gained confidence.
Of course you have.
Just in the few minutes we've been working.
Correct.
I've gained a little bit of
You were really
confidence.
anticipating now that I didn't have to tell you to take the house. And you're right. You're bang on the money there. Again, come back at 11 o'clock. Roll it up, strong left hand now. Let your hammer walk again your left hand there and make that scroll. If you want to pull it over the edge, get a little bit of help, a little bit of a nose.
Yeah, it's not. It wasn't just tight there.
It's fine.
That's looking great. Wow,
Good man.
it's not bad.
You've got a good fire there. You want to use your poker and tidy your edges up a little bit there. Just needs a little help now and then. Yeah, that's it. You're perfect. That's exactly it. You see, you want to bring more fuel in because it's already established now as a fire that's burnt for the last 2 or 3 minutes. Fuel that has to be moved.
Yeah.
So when you give it a little bit of movement, it keeps that intensity. You know?
Yeah.
Strong left hand now here, really strong left hand.
Just gonna say it's not supposed to bend like that,
No,
but
no,
that's
we'll be
okay.
fine, we'll be fine. We'll catch
The
up
spiral is still good.
Yeah.
It's reasonably tight. Wow. I think that's
Pull that flat. Turn it right round. Just give that a bit of a hit there now. Oh, not too hard now.
Oh, yeah,
Nice and
sorry.
easy, go on.
Sorry.
Right there. Yeah, flatten that out there now. Give yourself a chance.
Ah, yeah, okay. I've seen exactly.
recovery.
We made a recovery for my earlier errors.
Yeah, no, the steel just got
It was
hot.
bending in the wrong place.
Correct, man.
Yeah,
But you can
as I
recover
hammered
that.
it. Yeah.
You can recover that.
It's actually, do you know what? It's exhilarating.
It is, of course.
I'm
decide
creating something. It
Yeah.
feels good. It feels good.
Well, your adrenaline is kicking in because
I
you decide
know.
a very dangerous thing here, but
Yeah.
with respect.
Well, that's it.
No.
As you say, fire. Always treat fire with respect.
Yeah. Try and create that roll with your right hand to anticipate, so you can have, function with your hammer taps.
It's just
So all it'll end up doing is just a tap inside of it. You want to try and give it a whip. That 11 to 12 o'clock position. Back into the fire there.
So I'm going to ask the inevitable question. Can I take this home?
Of course you can.
I'll give it to the missus. I'll give it to my wife, and she'll just go, "That wasn't made by Tom." That's it. You're dead right. It wasn't.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Oh, it feels like it's working really.
You've got a good heat, you see.
Yeah.
That's it, man, yeah.
It felt
See,
like
with
it
a
was
strong left hand.
really scrolling
You're
very,
leaning into it there, you see.
very easily.
Here
Not
you go.
very easily,
No,
but
see,
definitely. Oh wow! Look at that. That's
Yeah.
coming on.
you're getting the feel of it because I noticed there that you had strength in your left hand.
Yeah.
And you pressed downward with your
I'm
left
getting
hand.
used to it.
You pushed it
Yeah.
to the anvil.
Yeah.
In the road. That's exactly it. Your left hand is working as like a pianist. The two hands become so efficient. You don't even know what your left hand is doing because you make it even with the right. But your left hand is instinctively doing what it's doing.
Yeah.
You do this here without even thinking about it.
Yeah. This is so exciting. It's enjoyable. But again, with the master guidance, it would be nothing.
Look, it's only
I'd be flapping about in the darkness here if it wasn't for that. Of course, I'm holding it there, and I don't need to hold it, but that's just a sign of, if nothing else, of
your strong left
a
hand.
lack of confidence.
You want to turn it over and correct that bend there. See, you're instinctively doing that now.
And then just tighten it up here.
Up a little bit back to
Brilliant.
the fire, yeah.
Look at that.
Fantastic. Get your poker now, adjust your fire there, give you a little bit of help with it left and right. Very good. Very good. Now have a look. Strong left hand again. Look at that scroll open.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Now you have it. Look at your instinct. This is telling
Yeah, I think that's about as much as I can expect on this outing. But that's not. Whoa, 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 whoa! Nearly dropped the hammer. Look at that. That's not bad.
Well done.
That's not bad for a second time out. In my opinion, you might look at it and say that's terrible.
Oh, it's great.
Oh, we didn't restart it. I'm sure we can see off this one. What are we on? 4:31. Oh, we're okay. Plenty of time.
Very good. Then again, strong left hand out, lets the right hand do the rolling now. Give it that quick 11 o'clock to 12, yeah?
You just kind of do, don't you? You just realise when it's just lost the heat that you need to stop.
Correct. Yes. Now you're in the fast.
Now I know this has taken a lot more heats than you would, but
that's irrespective. If it takes 100, your concept and ability to listen and translate that instruction and all of a sudden realising what your right and your left hand is doing with the way you're thinking. So the whole thing is becoming united.
Yeah.
You're not isolated. And that makes it very productive because now you say, well, that's the first one. Here's the 20th. Look at the difference.
Correct.
But if you want to be really strict and say, right, this is how many heats took the first one, this is how many the 20. Look at the difference. It's day and night.
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea to learn.
And of course it's cost as well, because when you're running a forge you have to pay for coal and electricity and everything else.
Yeah.
You know, time is money, as they say. Yes, this is a prize. It's not bad. I am so impressed. So delighted.
Yes.
I hope you can detect the excitement here, because I am genuinely very excited.
Very good, very good.
I'm really. It's suddenly gone from being a mysterious, almost stressful experience, which it was the first time I was here, to you kind of see that you're creating something, and it's exhilarating. There's an exhilaration to it, you know.
Your adrenaline is pumping.
Ooh, the heat's a bit far up the scroll, is it?
You can still make the most of that. You've got heat where you need it. It's just a bit hotter there, yeah. You want to go back there with the fire. Don't worry about it, as I say. That's the lesson.
Yeah.
You know where your heat should be. You recognise that. The minute you pull it out, it's fine.
It was just in the wrong place. It was too far up the bar.
Correct.
It wasn't close enough to the scroll.
You see that, you can tell me that. I can say that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. That's the learn. You see, I get the feel for it, which means you've recognised the importance of a good fire and the placement of the work in that fire.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the learn. Close that corridor in because the heat is escaping. Give it that little bit of that's exactly it there now. Perfect.
So I'm starting to feel the heat in it.
Yes, but it's not to the point where
it's not burning my hands just yet. It's not. I'm not crapping me pants just yet. If you excuse the turn of phrase. Yeah, I have to say, how extraordinary! What a difference! This is only the second time I've ever done this, and of course, at all times, having the master close at hand. Ooh.
So you'll find the bigger it gets, the easier it is because you've got a bit more body in it.
Yeah.
While it was small, it was quite tricky. But look, that was great. Really fantastic. Oh, that is a nice piece of work.
Just out of. Yeah, it's probably too late to be. It is just trying to bend in the wrong place, but
you see, you're getting a bit more body. The more body you have here, you'll find it easier to scroll because you've got a taller centre of gravity. The cantilever is easier because you're striking taller.
Yeah.
Because the distance between here and the point of the hammer, you're getting a little bit more momentum. When you have the right heat there, that will roll very naturally. It'll roll quite quickly too. You know
there's an instinct. There's definitely an instinct to it, isn't there?
You want to put that back in the forge now because straight away you can qualify, say, look, no, not ready, and you can get the focus now and give it a little head because it's quite hot behind it. Bring that, that's it, and the back one as well. Press it, tighten it all up. See, once you see the flames kind of becoming a bit static, it means that the opening is kind of choked with ash. You need to get the poker in to give it a little bit of room. It's like a fire in the kitchen. Give a little bit of a rattle with the poker and you get more of a fire.
Yeah. Oh, look at that.
Yes, nicely. Take your time now, strong left hand and let the right hand now do the scroll. Oh yes, you've got the instinct, Go ahead. You've got plenty of heat now there. Scroll them up, nice quick with the hammer. Do the foot. That's it. Well done. You can see it move. Flatten it out again.
Ow.
You getting that hot, is it?
Yeah.
Well, then what we'll do, go ahead, put it in the fire. Okay. Just, go ahead. No, it's okay. It's okay. Excuse me for a second. Shake and handle that.
Of course,
Yes.
yeah. You haven't got the soft,
Asbestos.
the soft office worker hands that I have. Oh, that's nice and cool now. Thanks for that, Tom. Yeah, that's great.
See, I didn't want to lose the heat in the upper body and the scroll there, so just want to just check that there now. Yes, that's a good look. Now we're nearly there, aren't we? I think a little bit more scrolling and I think we have our swan belly. Yes, well done. The nice squeeze there now. Yes, go for it now. Well done. Look at that. You've made the scroll. That is as good a job as you would ever get. I'm really pleased with that. Good job. Well done. What do you think? You want to go a little bit more?
I'll go a little bit
Little
more,
bit
but
more,
I mean, I'm very happy. Now, it's not just entirely closed up the way yours are.
No,
I
that's
can
fine.
see the space.
No, it's fine.
But,
It's fine.
I mean, it's not far off
No,
where...
it's not. It's fine.
It's not far off where I think it's pretty damn
I'm
good.
well pleased with it now.
Brilliant. It'll be interesting to watch this back, this video, in terms of how I looked when I started to how I look now. I was absolutely exhilarated there.
More heat.
Yeah, I was just going to say that just...
You know what, get your poker in the
Yeah.
fire and give it a little bit of a rattle there.
I
now.
think
You
so.
can see the flame build a little bit.
I think so.
I'll get into that here if you don't mind. Just watch this now.
Yeah, you do it properly.
No, I
you
don't.
show us how it's done.
I want to get to the air opening there. You see it there now?
Yeah.
Now I'll come in with that. See how the flame now is. See that channel or that tunnel?
Yeah.
Back in business now. Now you have to be careful now because that's got quite hot.
You don't want to overheat
That's
it.
overheat now half the time now. Yeah. Just a little bit. See that there now?
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic.
Oh, we don't want it to go out of shape too much. Just tighten it up.
Straight down. Turn it right round.
Oh yeah, here.
Turn it right round. Point it upwards. Now come straight in. No, straight down with the hammer.
Here.
Yes. Close all that up there. Still hot enough. Back in the fire. She's still hot enough. Like if you get that now to that shape there, now we're ready to clip. I don't think this needs to go any bigger.
Yeah, well, it's getting hot anyway, so
it getting hot again?
yeah, it's getting
Right, okay.
it's getting to the point where my little office hands won't be able to handle it. You know what they say? It's too hot, get out of the kitchen. It's too hot, get out of the forge.
Are you okay with that?
Yep.
Comfortable?
Don't have as strong a grip on that as I would have liked, but
Okay,
anyway.
what we'll do now, yeah? Into the wall. Stabilise the whole thing.
Yes.
Yes, the whole lot. You can drop it away if you want. Yeah, and just be very careful because where that's now into the water, 2 inches from your finger it's still red hot. Right. And that's you catch it out. You'll be very careful because unless you drop the whole thing and neutralise the whole thing, that you're confident to say, yeah, I'm happy to handle that. It's still very dangerous. Are you happy with that? Yeah. Very good. Now, what I'll do is I'm going to now address this fella here. That's very good. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's personality. I like the opening. No,
Yeah.
that's brilliant.
There's a wider hole in the middle of mine, but
It's
you know,
fine.
again,
It's fine.
yeah,
It's got
just a
personality.
difference in experience.
So what I'm doing now here is, that's how I presented it before. All I need to here is to work this. All that's done, that's fine. But I want to give that a little bit of character, a little bit of shape here. So that's what I start off with. And I have the forge now that have a nice corridor of flame. I have an access point with me tongues now. So while that's getting hot, I don't have to look at it or stare, because when I start staring I get the impression of the fire and I can't see the anvil then, believe it or
Yeah.
not.
Especially in the dark.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, because it's starting to get
The
dusky
light is
now,
just
yeah.
beginning to fade now. And that's it there, that's ready. I'll get a little bit more on the top of that through the tip. See, I do like to have a little bit of slenderness at the top. Yes, you see, the anvil, believe it or not, acts as a heat sink.
Of course,
It
yeah.
absorbs it.
Yeah.
But I'm happy with that now.
That's beautiful.
That's ready now. Do you want to do the same with that now, Anthony, with yours? I'll leave that one there. Just be careful
Yeah,
not to get out of the
please,
fold. So again, I'll leave it in your capable hands. There you go. You want to get that all hot there, and do exactly what I've just done there now.
Get closer to the fire now.
Yes.
See the jet of flame just coming up off the head of it.
Yes.
Say we're okay, are we?
Are we hot? No.
No, we're not.
Oh,
Hammer down, yeah.
yes.
And then a little bit on either side.
That's it. Put it back. That's it.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more awkward than you are.
No, it's fine. It's the first time.
Bad, it's not bad.
You know what to do. You're trying to translate that doing into your hands, and your hands is just working with you now. It's going to take a few of them, you know what I mean?
Quite a jet of flame coming
There's
out there now.
there's a good force there now, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just a little bit awkwardly positioned that time.
Should be okay. Swing that hand again, just hold up hands there, yeah. Turn it over right.
That's not.
That's okay, turn on 90 degrees now. Flatten the head, yes, good strike, good strike, good strike, good strike. Give it a bit of finesse again. You're developing the swan's head.
What it looks like I'm doing is it looks like I'm creating a screwdriver. I suppose this is the part where I'm not exactly sure what I'm supposed to be doing, that's all.
That's okay, what I'll do is just give it a little bit of finesse there.
Oh, okay, so again, just drawing it out at this end.
Yes.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
you want that tapered with the beak of the swan.
Yeah.
But the next thing that will go through, then we'll develop the beak and then we develop the neck in one go. Come on the side, get that flower down.
The other side.
Turn around to
This
the
one.
knees. Yes, give that a good whack. That's it. A good fade up there. Yeah, that's it. The very tip, the very tip. Turn around 90.
90.
Yeah, that's it. Save
That's
that.
he's come out of it,
Yeah,
hasn't he?
okay, back into your fire.
Perhaps just not thin enough at the end. is
Nearly
it?
there. Yeah, well, it's better that way than overdone it, because then you're into a trickier situation if you've overdone it.
Yeah. It's funny looking at the master's work versus the apprentices. But, you know, if I can bring something home that resembles a swan spiral pendant, I will feel so that I've achieved something fairly major today, to be honest. Quite apart from the fact that I've had loads of fun. Loads of fun.
You want to turn it on the side, and that's right enough there, yeah. Draw it out to the taper on the very tip. Yes. Very, very tip. There we go. Let's have a look. You know what? I think that is as good as you're going to get. I think it could be, it could overdo it. I think that's fine. I think if you want to get the hammer, just to give that little shoulder a little bit of a take there, put that back down on the anvil, you can see, turn it around, get the hammer in right close there as you can. It's tricky.
Oh, it is. Oh yeah, it is tricky.
Just to lose a little bit of that shoulder. That's okay.
That's
Fine.
okay.
Fine.
It has character.
Fine. Yeah, it's fine.
It has character. Am I putting it in again?
Yes. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do.
Yeah.
I think we're going to go to the voice now to perform the neck. So if you want to adjust the canvas,
Yeah.
that's as good as you're going to put that in. Right, what I'm doing now here is I'm establishing the swan beak, so to speak. It's the first part of the form, so I just get the needle nose pliers and I turn it round and that's it. That's the,
Just like that.
Just like that.
One simple movement.
Yeah, just like that. So back into the fire. You hear the twilight there, you can anticipate that they can sense that stretch in the evening. You know that?
Yeah,
There's a great excitement around the trees there. Okay, back again. So what we're doing is we're establishing our swan now. We have a good voice. This piece is strong.
Now you're twisting it the other way.
Yes. So I have established.
Oh, now I have you. Wow.
That's it.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so there you have. Like all the swans have certain personalities as well regarding the bill and the neck, which I think is fine. I mean,
Well,
because it's when you think about it, you know, you're just wanting to create.
Want them all to be the same.
You know, as I say, it's all done with the pliers and the vice, so that's the concept of the work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what you're going to do now, Anthony. I want you to do the same thing.
The first movement is just to create the beat.
Yes.
And that's what a
Now-
forward movement.
Now that's the critical question, and you have thought about it before you even came to the fortress. It's exactly the way to do it, because all of a sudden you'll make the move, and all of a sudden you'll suddenly realise, oh, it's the wrong direction. The beak is always going to go in the direction of the scroll.
Yeah.
So you're going to give that a little bit of help, and you're going to form it that direction there, ever so slightly. That's all you have to do. It's a good forge there. Let you put that in the fire there now.
Brilliant.
Go ahead. Yeah, so while that's new in the fire, and you're thinking about how long it will be in the fire, just to get it right, you've your pack now cleared, your voice is ready, you're ready to go then, you know. You're all the time thinking about that there while that's in the fire, because
Yeah.
that's your opportunity. You don't like to do it while it's still in your hand, and all of a sudden you have to make an adjustment. That could be good. It's always an air of cautionary, because you say you've drawn that to taper ever so slightly, so it's a smaller material at the end.
Yeah.
I can boil it quite quickly then.
Right. Yeah.
Nearly there, it's another 10-12 seconds. Yep. Now get a good voice. Strong leg, yeah. And in the pliers, the very tip taller. Turn it back towards your left hand side, exactly. That's what we'll do. Just overdone it ever so slightly. We'll go back in the fire again. All we want to do is just the pliers
Just literally the tip.
there.
Okay.
Because you see the distance between here and here.
Yeah.
If you do that any further, you'll all of a sudden have a big sweeping
okay.
thing.
Yeah.
And you'll have a, I don't know what you call it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
A different type of bird.
But like you know, it's easy to recover. All of this is the very tip. See, this is the finesse now for the project now. So you're in that zone where we're nearly there. You see, it's almost critical that the heat, that probably wasn't hot enough the last time. That's why when you went to grab it, so much of it moved. If it was very hot at the very tip, only the tip would have moved. Yeah. That's all you need. Yeah. Okay. See, that's not good enough there. The body is hot, but not where you need it. This is where the concentration comes in now. Because that can boil very easily, and you don't want that to happen, because then you're into reworking correctness, and it just becomes a nuisance then. That's good.
You put it on the vice for me, because I
No problem at all.
a bit more confidence there.
Now, just the very tip.
Yeah. There
Just
we go.
ever so slight. Strong hands again, roll it ever so slight. That's grand. 100%. Perfect. Well done. Straighten it up a little bit there now. Come in there. Give that a little bit of a turn.
mean this,
Yes. Give it a
This
little
way.
So it just makes it easy for the
yeah,
next bit. Is that okay?
yeah. Brilliant.
Now, pick it up. Right back in there. Well done. Yeah, now again, anticipate where you want hot steel. You've got a fire that's on just a little bit of calculated. Then you want to corridor. Yeah. Just pick that up and have a look at it now.
It's to be okay, doesn't it?
Right. Get that straight as you can. When it comes straight up. Do you know what I'll do? I'll
Yeah. See, this is the.
go ahead. No, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Now, come in there, grab and turn.
The other way.
Clockwise. Yes, strong hand, strong hand, strong hand, strong hand. That's it. Well done. Look at that. Now's your swan. Oh wow! Look at that. There you go. Oh, look at the finesse in that. Wow. Now, do you know what? If you want to put that back in the fire to give that a little bit of tweaking, because you've lost the heat now, but like you've ultimately made your swan, which that looks like a swan now. You know what I mean? Like, like that's great. Back in the fire, we just get a little bit of heat on top, and you can tweak it. Like the concept worked. It done exactly what you were asked to do, and there's your swan.
I'm happy.
You know.
Yeah. Wow.
With the beeswax in it.
Oh.
Oops.
It's all right. We lost power there. We get our back running again. Ah, okay. We're out of memory card.
Is that right?
It's all full, but it's fine
God,
because I think we've.
Now, if you want to go to your voice there now, all you're doing is just tweaking it to what you like now. Yeah, good strong leg. Yeah, now your voice is stable. Yeah. Now in with your needle nose and just direct that where you would like it. Now, if you want to open a little bit, if you want to just open the bill a little bit.
Do you know what?
I think that's grand. That's fine.
There's no point overdoing it, is there?
No, well done.
You know?
Good job. Now, right next, while we have the heat in the body, this is what I do now. See, you've got good heat in that steel there, so that's going to be, you can still see the colour. You see the red at the top there?
Yeah.
That means that's going to be good. Again, this is another very old finish with beeswax. See the patina now in that already. Wow. Yeah, you see it's not red hot, but hot.
Yeah.
That it's accepting the wax there and it's made it boil it up there now. There you go, there's your, I mean, I'm well impressed with that. That's absolutely something else. That is a tremendous success there.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't seen, of all the efforts I've seen, that really is a stout effort. Took your time, listened to the instruction, and just went and done it.
So it was amazing after a few times in the fire.
Oh,
Just listening to you.
yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. You see, what's happened there is your mind and your ears is listening and you're processing that instruction. But you have to then develop a skill between there and the hands. And the hands is not caught up with it just yet because it's a different experience. You've never done it before. But your mind is telling them what to do, but you're not maybe doing what you want to do until it gets a bit of practice. And when you get 2 or 3 of them under your wing, all of a sudden the hand starts dialing in. And it becomes obvious then. And then there's a lot of satisfaction in that because what you visualise in your mind, it's transferred into the work. And it's done. You can't get any better.
That looks like a swan.
It's
I'm
absolutely
really happy with
like,
it.
like all of my newer swans now, I'm beginning to put a little opening in there. You've seen them there, as I said to you there. I do like that opening. I do want an opening in it there.
Yeah.
It gives it's a little easier to look at rather than the very tight because there's no point in the tight. That gives a little bit of character then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's very good.
I'm well happy with that.
Very good. No, well done.